I have 1 year left to live. Marry me and give me an heir, and you'll get everything, said the millionaire. Lucas Hale stood in his penthouse apartment, 41 floors above the city that had made him rich, and rehearsed the words that would either save his life or destroy the only real relationship he'd ever had. I have 1 year left to live. His voice sounded hollow in the empty space. Marry me, give me an heir, and when I'm gone, you and the child will inherit everything. The words felt clinical, transactional, exactly what everyone expected from him. Lucas Hale, the millionaire who turned everything into a business deal. But his hands were shaking, and he'd rewritten the speech 17 times, and nothing captured what he actually meant, which was, I'm terrified of dying alone. You're the only person who's ever made me feel human. Please don't leave me to face this darkness by myself. But he couldn't say that, couldn't be that vulnerable, could barely admit it to himself. He looked at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. 41 years old, 6'2", the kind of face business magazines called striking and women called intimidating. He'd lost weight in the past 6 months, not enough for most people to notice, but he saw it. The slight gauntness to his cheeks, the way his tailored shirts hung differently, the way his body was slowly betraying him. In 1 hour, Jenna would arrive for dinner. Jenna Brooks, the 28-year-old receptionist who'd somehow become the most important person in his world, the woman who'd held his hand in a hospital room and changed everything, the only person he trusted with the truth of what was happening to him, and he was going to ask her to marry him. Not because he loved her, though, God help him, he did, so much it physically hurt, but because he was dying and he needed to leave something meaningful behind, and she was the only person he could imagine raising his child with love instead of entitlement. The proposal was practical, logical, a business arrangement that would benefit them both. So why did his hands keep shaking? Why did the thought of her saying no feel like it would kill him faster than the disease eating away at his nervous system? Lucas turned from the window and checked his watch. 53 minutes until she arrived. 53 minutes to figure out how to ask the woman he loved to give him a child and then watch him die. But to understand how Lucas Hale, brilliant, ruthless, emotionally unavailable Lucas Hale ended up here, you have to go back 6 months. Back to the day everything changed. Back to the moment when the untouchable millionaire collapsed in his own company lobby, and a gentle receptionist was the only one who ran to save him. Before we go deeper into this story, I need to ask you something. Wherever you're watching from right now, whether you're in your living room in California, commuting to work in London, or lying in bed in Toronto, drop a comment and tell me where you are and what time it is. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Because the stories we share aren't just about entertainment. They're about the moments that change us, the choices that define us, and the love we find when we stop running from our own humanity. Now let me take you back to where Lucas's story really began. 6 months earlier, the doctor's office was sterile and cold, decorated with the kind of abstract art that was supposed to be calming, but only reminded you that you were in a place where bad news was delivered with practiced sympathy. Dr. Patricia Reeves sat across from Lucas with a file open on her desk, her expression professionally neutral. She was one of the country's top neurologists, which was why Lucas had paid an obscene amount for this appointment. When you were a millionaire, having strange symptoms, tremors in your hands, unexplained fatigue, moments where your vision doubled, you bought access to the best. Mr. Hale, Dr. Reeves began, her voice measured. The test results have come back, and I'm afraid the news isn't what we'd hoped. Lucas sat perfectly still in the leather chair, his posture impeccable, his face a mask of calm. This was his superpower, the ability to show nothing, feel nothing, reveal nothing. It had served him well in boardrooms and negotiations. It had helped him build an empire from nothing. It would not help him now. You have a rare genetic condition called familial progressive autonomic failure, Dr. Reeves continued. It affects the autonomic nervous system, the part that controls involuntary functions like heart rate, blood pressure, digestion. In your case, the progression has been relatively slow, which is why symptoms only appeared recently. But I'm afraid the prognosis is not favorable. Lucas heard the words from a distance, as if they were being spoken to someone else. What's the timeline? 12 to 18 months. Dr. Reeves's voice was gentle now, practiced sympathy that probably worked on most patients. Possibly less. The condition is progressive and degenerative. There's no treatment, no cure. I'm very sorry, Mr. Hale. 12 to 18 months. 1 year, give or take. Lucas nodded once, his face still revealing nothing. I understand. Thank you for your time, Doctor. Mr. Hale, I know this is a shock. We have counselors who specialize in... That won't be necessary. Lucas stood, his movements precise and controlled. I appreciate your thoroughness. Please send the full report to my assistant. He walked out of that office with his head high and his shoulders back, the picture of a man in complete control. He made it all the way to his car, a black Tesla parked in the executive section of the medical center's garage before the mask cracked. Lucas sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, and felt his entire world collapse inward. 12 to 18 months. He was 41 years old. He'd spent the last 20 years building Heir Industries from a small tech startup into a multi-billion-dollar empire, spanning software, real estate, and hospitality. He owned hotels in 15 cities, had patents on technology used in millions of devices, had a penthouse apartment worth more than most people earned in a lifetime, and in 12 to 18 months, he'd be dead. All of it, the empire, the wealth, the success that had consumed his entire adult life, would be left to distant cousins who'd never worked a day, or fought over by business partners who'd pretend to mourn while dismantling everything he'd built. He had no wife, no children, no real friends, just associates, business partners, people who valued his money and connections but didn't actually know him. He'd sacrificed everything for success, and success meant nothing if you died alone. Lucas's breath came shorter, faster. His hands started shaking from the disease or from panic. He couldn't tell. The tremors had been happening more frequently lately. Usually he could hide them, control them through sheer force of will. Not now. Now his hands shook violently on the steering wheel, and his vision blurred, and the parking garage started to spin, and he realized with horrible clarity that this was his future. This loss of control, this weakness, this slow degradation, until he couldn't function at all, and he'd face it alone. The thought was so crushing, so absolutely devastating, that Lucas finally let himself break. Sitting in his expensive car in an empty parking garage, the millionaire who never showed emotion pressed his forehead against the steering wheel and cried, not the dignified, silent tears of a strong man overcome, but the ugly, gasping sobs of someone who just had their mortality shoved in their face and realized they'd wasted their entire life on things that didn't matter. He cried for the family he'd never prioritized, the relationships he'd avoided, the vulnerability he'd always seen as weakness. He cried for his parents, dead since he was 19, in a car accident that had left him with nothing but a small inheritance and a burning need to prove he could survive alone. He cried for the boy who'd learned that love meant loss, and the man who'd built walls so high that no one could scale them. And he cried because those walls had worked too well, and now he was going to die inside them, and there was no one to witness his life ending except maybe his lawyer and his accountant. Eventually, the tears stopped. Lucas sat up, wiped his face with his sleeve, something he never did, always carried handkerchiefs, and stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. Red eyes, blotchy skin, the face of a man who'd just broken. He looked away. 20 minutes later, after composing himself, Lucas drove back to Heir Industries headquarters. The building was a gleaming testament to his success, 35 floors of steel and glass in the heart of downtown. His name, literally, on the structure. He parked in his private spot and took the executive elevator to the 28th floor, where his corner office overlooked the city. His assistant, Margaret, looked up as he passed. "Mr. Hale, your 3 o'clock is waiting in conference room B." And she stopped, concern flickering across her professional mask. "Sir, are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine." His voice was cold, automatic. "Tell them I'll be there in 15 minutes. He locked himself in his office, splashed cold water on his face in the private bathroom, and stared at himself in the mirror until the evidence of his breakdown disappeared. Then Lucas Hale, billionaire CEO, walked into that meeting and negotiated a $12 million deal without anyone suspecting that he'd just been given a death sentence. Because that's what you did when you were him. You compartmentalized, you controlled, you never ever let anyone see you weak. It would be another 3 months before he learned that control was an illusion and weakness was just honesty, and the person who'd teach him that lesson was a receptionist named Jenna Brooks. Jenna Brooks had never planned on being a receptionist at a tech company. She'd wanted to be a teacher, actually. Had made it halfway through her degree at community college before her father's heart attack drained the family savings and forced her to drop out and find full-time work. That was 4 years ago. She was 28 now, still living modestly, still sending money home to help with her younger sister's college tuition and her mother's medical bills. The job at Heir Industries paid well better than teaching would have, if she was honest, and the benefits were excellent. Health insurance that actually covered things, dental, vision, the kind of stability her family desperately needed. So she sat at the sleek reception desk in the marble lobby of Heir Industries, greeted visitors with genuine warmth, answered phones with professional courtesy, and tried not to think too much about the dreams she'd deferred indefinitely. Most of her co-workers were fine. Some were kind. A few were pretentious in that way people get when they work for a prestigious company and forget they're still just employees punching a clock. And then there was Lucas Heir himself. Jenna had been working there for 8 months and had probably exchanged fewer than 50 words with the man whose name was on her paycheck. He was a ghost who appeared occasionally, usually early morning or late evening, moving through the lobby like he was in a different dimension from everyone else. Tall, intimidatingly handsome in that sharp-featured way that made you think of predatory birds, always in a suit that probably cost more than Jenna's monthly rent, never smiling, never really looking at anyone, just through them. The other employees had plenty to say about him. "Ice cold," said Brandon from IT. "I heard he fired his last assistant for bringing him the wrong coffee order." "That's not true," countered Melissa from marketing. "But he is impossible to work for. The turnover in his office is insane." "He's brilliant, though," offered David from accounting. "The deals he's pulled off? The man's a genius, just not a human one." Jenna mostly stayed out of these conversations, but she'd noticed things the others hadn't, like how Lucas Heir always arrived before anyone else and left after everyone was gone, how he ate lunch alone at his desk. She'd seen the delivery bags in the trash when she did her evening walkthrough, how he never took personal phone calls, never mentioned weekend plans, never joined the occasional happy hours the executive team organized. He seemed less like a cold bastard and more like someone who'd forgotten how to be a person. Once, about 3 months into her employment, Jenna had been working late, finishing some filing, when Lucas emerged from the elevator at 8:30 at night. He'd stopped when he saw her, surprise flickering across his usually impassive face. "Miss Brooks, you're here late." "Just catching up on some work, Mr. Heir." He'd nodded, started to walk away, then paused. "You should go home. Whatever it is, can wait until tomorrow." "I'm almost done, sir, but thank you." Another pause. Do you enjoy working here?" The question caught her off guard. "Yes, sir, very much." "Good, that's good." He'd stood there awkwardly for another moment, like he wanted to say something else but had forgotten how human conversation worked. Then he'd nodded once and disappeared toward the executive elevators. Jenna had watched him go, struck by how lonely he'd seemed in that brief interaction, how uncertain, like asking a simple question had cost him something. After that, she paid more attention, and what she saw was a man who'd built an empire but forgotten to build a life. She saw it in the way he flinched when people laughed too loudly in the lobby, like joy was a foreign sound, in how he always took the stairs instead of the elevator when he could, avoiding small talk with other executives. In the careful distance he maintained from everyone, like he was afraid human contact might burn him. The other employees saw coldness. Jenna saw protection, armor worn so long it had fused to skin. She didn't know why she felt compelled to do small kindnesses for him. Maybe because she understood what it was like to be invisible. The receptionist people talked around, but never to. Maybe because her mother had raised her to see people who were hurting, even when they hid it well. So Jenna started doing little things. When Lucas came through the lobby looking particularly exhausted, she'd make sure there was fresh coffee in the executive kitchen, his preferred blend that she'd learned by asking his assistant. When he worked through lunch, she'd leave a granola bar and water bottle on the corner of her desk with a small note, "In case you forgot to eat, JB." He never acknowledged these gestures directly, but the coffee disappeared, the granola bars vanished, and once she'd found a note on her desk in precise handwriting, "Thank you for the coffee. It was thoughtful. LH." Such a small thing, but it made Jenna smile for the rest of the day. Still, they weren't friends, barely even acquaintances. He was the billionaire CEO, she was the receptionist. There was a gulf between them that couldn't be crossed, until the day he collapsed in the lobby, and Jenna ran to him without thinking about gulfs or hierarchies or anything except the fact that a human being needed help. It happened on a Tuesday morning in early October, 6 months before Lucas would stand in his penthouse rehearsing a proposal. The lobby was busy, executives arriving for an 8 o'clock board meeting, visitors checking in, deliveries being made. Jenna was managing the chaos with her usual efficiency, directing traffic, answering questions, keeping everything running smoothly. Lucas came through the main entrance at 7:40, earlier than usual. Jenna noticed immediately because she always noticed when he arrived. It was part of her morning routine now, watching for him, making sure he got his coffee, taking note of how he seemed. This morning, he seemed wrong. His face was paler than usual. His movements were slightly off, like he was concentrating too hard on walking straight. When he stopped to check his phone, Jenna saw his hand trembling. She stood up from her desk instinctively, some internal alarm ringing. Lucas put his phone away and continued toward the elevator bank. Made it about 10 feet before he stumbled. He caught himself against the wall, his palm flat against the marble, head down. Several people glanced over but kept walking. This was a corporate lobby, and nobody wanted to be the first to acknowledge that something might be wrong with the boss, except Jenna. She came around her desk quickly, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Mr. Hale, are you all right?" He looked up at her, and she saw fear in his eyes, raw, undisguised fear. He started to say. Then his legs gave out. Lucas collapsed, his 6'2" frame crumpling like someone had cut his strings. He hit the marble floor hard, the sound echoing through the lobby like a gunshot. Everything stopped. Executives froze mid-conversation, visitors stared. A delivery person dropped their package, but no one moved. They all just stood there, shocked into stillness by the sight of the untouchable Lucas Hale sprawled on the floor. Jenna didn't hesitate. She ran to him, dropping to her knees beside his unconscious form, her skirt pooling around her. Training from a CPR class she'd taken years ago kicked in. Check airways, check breathing, check pulse. "Someone call 911, she shouted, her voice cutting through the frozen silence. People pulled out phones, suddenly animated. Jenna loosened Lucas's tie, checked his breathing again, shallow but present, and positioned his head carefully. His face was grey, his skin clammy with sweat. "Mr. Hale, can you hear me?" She kept her voice calm, authoritative, even though her heart was hammering. "Lucas, stay with me." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "What? You collapsed. Paramedics are coming. Just stay still, okay?" He tried to sit up. Jenna gently pressed his shoulder back down. "Don't move yet. Let's wait for the professionals." Everyone's staring. His voice was barely a whisper, and the vulnerability in it broke her heart. "Let them stare. You're more important than their opinions." His eyes focused on her face then, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. "You stayed?" "Of course I stayed. You think I was going to leave you on the floor?" Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, or disbelief that someone had actually helped him. Before Jenna could decipher it, the paramedics arrived. She moved back to give them space but stayed close, answering their questions about what she'd observed. When they loaded Lucas onto a stretcher, she touched his hand briefly. "You're going to be okay." He grabbed her fingers, his grip surprisingly strong. "Come with me, please." The paramedics started to object she wasn't family, but Jenna saw the fear in Lucas's eyes and made a decision. "I'm coming." She looked at the senior paramedic. "I'm his emergency contact." A lie, but a necessary one. They nodded, and let her climb into the ambulance. During the ride to the hospital, Lucas drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time he woke, his eyes found Jenna first, like she was his anchor point. She held his hand the entire way and told him it would be okay, even though she had no idea if that was true. At the emergency room, chaos took over. Doctors, nurses, questions, tests. Jenna stayed in the background, out of the way, but present. When they finally moved Lucas to a room and he fell into an exhausted sleep, she sank into the uncomfortable chair beside his bed. It was 3 in the morning when Lucas woke. The hospital room was dark except for the glow of monitors and the light from the hallway. Jenna was still there, her head resting awkwardly on the edge of his bed, her hand still loosely holding his. She'd stayed, all night, for him. Lucas stared at her sleeping face, gentle even in exhaustion, her expression open in a way his never was, and felt something crack in his chest. Something that had been frozen for 20 years, thawed just slightly. When was the last time someone had stayed? When had anyone ever chosen to sit with him through darkness? His parents were dead. His few relatives had vanished after the inheritance was settled. His business associates were exactly that, associates, not friends. The women he'd occasionally dated were drawn to his money and power, not to him. No one stayed for Lucas Heir, the person. They stayed for Lucas Heir, the brand, the millionaire, the connection. But this woman, this receptionist, whose name he'd barely learned, had run to him when everyone else stood frozen, had held his hand in an ambulance, had spent the entire night in an uncomfortable chair just so he wouldn't wake up alone. "Why did you stay?" he whispered, not expecting her to hear. Jenna stirred, lifting her head groggily. Her eyes opened, focused on him. "You're awake. How do you feel?" "Why did you stay?" he repeated. She sat up straighter, stretching her neck carefully. "Because you needed someone. Everyone does." Such a simple answer, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You don't even know me. I know you work too hard and eat lunch alone, and come in before everyone else, and leave after everyone's gone." Jenna's voice was soft, not judgmental. "I know you're kind even when you pretend not to be. And I know that when you collapsed, you looked terrified. Nobody should be alone when they're scared." Lucas felt his throat tighten. "I'm your boss. This isn't your responsibility." "Maybe not. But I'm a person before I'm an employee. And you're a person before you're a boss. Right now, that's all that matters." Before Lucas could respond, the doctor knocked and entered. Dr. Sarah Chen, the ER physician who'd admitted him. She looked between Lucas and Jenna with professional curiosity. "Mr. Heir, you're awake. Good. We need to discuss your test results." "Is this?" She gestured to Jenna. Lucas made a decision. "Yes, she can stay." Dr. Chen nodded and pulled up a chair. "You had what we call a syncopal episode, fainting caused by a sudden drop in blood pressure. Given your other symptoms, I'd like you to follow up with a neurologist as soon as possible. There are some irregularities that concern me." "What kind of irregularities?" Jenna asked, when Lucas said nothing. "I'd rather let a specialist address that. But Mr. Heir, this isn't something to ignore. You need a full workup." After the doctor left, silence settled over the room. Jenna could feel the tension radiating from Lucas, the way his jaw was clenched, his hands fisted in the sheets. "I already know," he said quietly. "I saw a neurologist last week. I have the diagnosis." Jenna's heart sank. "What is it?" he told her. "The name of the disease, the prognosis, the timeline. 12 to 18 months, no cure, progressive deterioration." He spoke clinically, like he was discussing quarterly earnings rather than his own death. But Jenna heard what he wasn't saying, the fear underneath the detachment, the devastation he was trying to contain. When he finished, she didn't offer platitudes or false hope. She just squeezed his hand. "I'm so sorry, Lucas." He flinched at his first name on her lips. "It's Mr. Heir." "Not right now, it's not." She met his eyes steadily. "Right now you're just Lucas, and you're scared, and that's okay." "I'm not scared." The automatic denial. "Yes, you are, and you should be. What you're facing is terrifying." Jenna's voice was gentle but firm. "But lying about it doesn't make it less real. It just makes it harder to deal with." Lucas stared at her for a long moment. Then, finally, the mask cracked completely. "I don't want to die alone," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Then don't," Jenna said simply. "Let people in. Let me help." "Why would you want to help? I'm dying." "That's exactly why. Because time is precious, and you shouldn't spend what you have left isolated and afraid." She paused. "And because despite what you think, you're not as unlovable as you've convinced yourself you are." Something in Lucas shattered at those words. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the diagnosis. Maybe it was this woman seeing through defenses he'd spent 20 years perfecting. Whatever it was, he broke. Not dramatically, not loudly, but tears slid down his face and his breathing hitched, and Jenna moved from her chair to the edge of the hospital bed and pulled him into an embrace. Lucas Hale, who hadn't let anyone touch him with genuine affection in years, collapsed against this stranger and cried like a child, and Jenna held him through it, one hand in his hair, the other rubbing circles on his back, murmuring soothing sounds that weren't quite words. She held him until the tears stopped and exhaustion pulled him back into sleep. Then she settled back into the uncomfortable chair and stayed, because she'd said she would, and Jenna Brooks kept her promises. When Lucas woke again hours later, morning light streaming through the hospital window, the first thing he saw was Jenna, still there, still keeping watch. "You really stayed all night," he said, wonder in his voice. "I told you I would. Nobody keeps their word like that. Not for me." "Then you've been around the wrong people." Jenna smiled at him, tired but genuine. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck. And like," he paused, struggling with words, "like maybe I'm not as alone as I thought." "You're not alone," Jenna promised. "Not anymore." And Lucas believed her. Have you ever had a moment where everything changed, where one choice, one action, one person shifted the entire direction of your life? Drop a comment and tell me about it. Because that's what happened to Lucas in that hospital room. His whole carefully constructed world of isolation and control cracked open, and what rushed in was something he'd been running from his entire life: human connection. If you're finding yourself drawn into this story, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next between Lucas and Jenna, you're not going to believe it. The days following Lucas's collapse were strange and transformative. He was discharged from the hospital the next afternoon with strict instructions to reduce stress, eat regularly, and follow up with his neurologist. Jenna called him a car service and helped him to the lobby. "Will you be all right?" she asked at the entrance. "Do you have someone at home?" "I'll be fine. It's just me." The words came out more lonely than he'd intended. Jenna hesitated. "Do you want me to ride with you? Make sure you get home safely." "You've done enough. More than enough." Lucas wanted to say yes desperately, but couldn't bring himself to ask for more than she'd already given. "That's not what I asked." He looked at her, this woman who barely knew him, but had shown him more genuine care in 24 hours than most people had in his entire life. "Yes," he admitted quietly, "I'd like that." The car ride to his penthouse was quiet. Lucas was hyper-aware of Jenna beside him, of the fact that she'd been awake for nearly 30 hours taking care of him. She should be exhausted. She should resent the imposition. Instead, she looked out the window and made occasional gentle observations about the city, never demanding conversation, but offering companionship. When they arrived at his building, the doorman did a double-take at seeing Mr. Hale with a woman. Lucas ignored it and led Jenna to the private elevator that opened directly into his penthouse. The apartment was exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire bachelor: sleek, modern, expensive, and utterly devoid of personality. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked like art installations, a kitchen that clearly was never used, everything in shades of grey and black and chrome. "Wow," Jenna said, looking around. "This is impressive." "You mean sterile," Lucas said dryly. "I was trying to be polite," her lips quirked. "But yes, this looks like a showroom, not a home. I'm not here much, just to sleep." "That explains it." Jenna moved toward the kitchen. "When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday morning, I think." "Lucas," she said it with gentle exasperation. "Sit. I'm making you food." "You don't have to." "Sit," she repeated, more firmly. He sat. Jenna opened his nearly empty refrigerator and shook her head. "We're going to need to stock this, but I can work with what's here." She made scrambled eggs and toast from the few ingredients available, moving around his kitchen with easy confidence. Lucas watched from the bar stool, mesmerized by the domesticity of it. No one had cooked in his kitchen, ever. "Here," she set a plate in front of him. "Eat slowly. Your stomach's probably empty." The eggs were perfect, fluffy and seasoned just right. Lucas ate mechanically at first, then with real hunger as his appetite woke up. "Good?" Jenna asked, sitting beside him with her own plate. "Very good, thank you." They ate in comfortable silence. When they finished, Jenna started cleaning up despite his protests. "You should rest," she said. "I'm going to make sure your medications are organized and that you have actual food in this place. Then I'll get out of your hair." "Jenna," he waited until she looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you need help, and I can help. It's not complicated. It is for me." Lucas struggled with the words. "I don't. I'm not used to people caring without wanting something in return. I'm not looking for anything except for you to take care of yourself," Jenna said simply. "Is that really so hard to believe?" Yes, actually. It was nearly impossible to believe. But he didn't say that. Instead, he said, "I don't want you to feel obligated. You're my employee, not my caretaker." "Then consider me your friend," she smiled at his shocked expression. "Is that allowed? Can the scary CEO have a friend?" "I don't have friends. You do now." Jenna started loading the dishwasher. "And friends take care of each other, so let me help, okay? It's not weakness to accept support." Lucas felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of trust. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." Over the following weeks, a routine developed that neither of them had planned, but both needed desperately. Jenna started bringing Lucas lunch at work, real food, instead of whatever delivery he'd usually order and then forget to eat. She'd knock on his office door around noon, set a container on his desk, and stay for 20 minutes while he ate, and they talked about anything except work or his diagnosis. She learned that he loved old movies but never took time to watch them, that he'd wanted to travel but had been too busy building his empire, that he played piano. There was a beautiful grand piano in his penthouse that he admitted he hadn't touched in 2 years because there was never time. "Make time," Jenna told him. "That's literally the only thing you need to do now. Make time for the things that matter." "And what matters?" he asked. "What makes you feel alive? What brings you joy? What you'll regret not doing when—" She stopped, not wanting to finish the sentence. "When I'm dying," Lucas finished for her. "You can say it, Jenna. Pretending it's not happening doesn't change anything." "I know. I just hate thinking about it." "So do I. But your point stands. I should make time for things that matter." He paused. "Like lunch with you." She smiled at that. "I like lunch with you too." Lucas found himself looking forward to those lunch breaks with an intensity that would have embarrassed him if he'd let himself think about it too hard. Jenna made his sterile office feel warmer, made the weight of his diagnosis feel slightly less crushing. She also started accompanying him to doctor's appointments. At first, Lucas had resisted. This was private, medical, not something to share. But Jenna had pointed out that he needed someone to remember what the doctors said, to ask questions when he was too overwhelmed, to be a second set of ears. "You don't have to do this alone," she'd said. So she came with him, sat in waiting rooms, held his hand when the news was bad, asked the questions he was too afraid to voice. And slowly, without either of them quite realizing it, Jenna became the most important person in Lucas's life. She was there when he had his first major episode at work, a moment where his blood pressure dropped suddenly and he nearly passed out in a board meeting. Jenna had been nearby, saw him falter, and got him out of the room before anyone noticed. She was there on the bad days when the reality of his diagnosis hit him like a physical blow and he couldn't function through the despair. She'd sit with him in his office or his apartment and just be present, not trying to fix anything, just offering companionship through the darkness. She was there on the better days too, pushing him to do things he'd always put off. They went to a movie on a weekday afternoon, something Lucas had never done in his life. They walked through the park at sunset, They ordered takeout and ate it on his balcony while watching the city lights come on. "This is nice," Lucas said one evening, 2 months after his collapse. They were sitting on his balcony, Chinese food containers between them, the October air crisp but not yet cold. "What is this? Having someone to share things with. I didn't realize how lonely I was until I wasn't anymore." Jenna looked at him with those gentle eyes that saw too much. "You don't have to be lonely, Lucas. You never did." "I thought I did. I thought. After my parents died, after everyone showed their true colors when there was money involved, I thought being alone was safer, that if I didn't let anyone close, I couldn't be hurt." "But you hurt anyway," Jenna said softly. "You hurt yourself by cutting yourself off from connection." "Yes, the admission came easier now, and now I'm dying. And I wasted so much time afraid of something that couldn't hurt me worse than isolation already did." Jenna reached across and took his hand. The gesture had become natural between them, physical comfort that neither questioned anymore. "You didn't waste time, Lucas. You survived. You built something remarkable. You just forgot that empires mean nothing if there's no one to share them with." "I'm not forgetting anymore." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you for reminding me what matters." "You're welcome." She smiled, and Lucas felt his chest tighten with an emotion he wasn't ready to name. "Now, eat your lo mein before it gets cold." They ate in companionable silence, and Lucas marveled at how comfortable this felt. How right. He'd spent 41 years avoiding exactly this kind of intimacy, and now that he had it, he couldn't imagine going back to the emptiness. But guilt gnawed at him too, because Jenna was giving him so much: her time, her energy, her compassion. And what was he giving her? A friendship with an expiration date. The burden of watching him deteriorate. The grief that would come when the inevitable happened. "Jenna," he said carefully, "you know you don't owe me this, right? You've already done more than anyone could reasonably expect." "I know." "Then why? Why spend your free time with a dying man? Why invest in something with such a definitive ending?" Jenna was quiet for a moment, choosing her words. "Because the ending doesn't diminish the meaning. Because knowing something is temporary doesn't make it less valuable. And because," she met his eyes, "because I care about you, Lucas. Not as my boss, not as an obligation. As a person I genuinely enjoy being around. Even knowing I won't be around much longer. Especially knowing that. Life is short for everyone, Lucas. Yours is just shorter than most. But that doesn't mean it matters less. It means every moment matters more." Lucas felt tears threaten and blinked them back. He'd cried more in the past 2 months than in the previous 20 years. Jenna had broken something open in him, and he couldn't seal it back up even if he wanted to. "I care about you too," he said quietly. "More than I probably should." "There's no should in caring about people." Jenna's thumb traced circles on the back of his hand. "You feel what you feel, and I'm glad you feel it. I'm glad you're letting yourself be human again." They sat there on the balcony as the city darkened and the lights came on like stars, holding hands and existing in a moment that felt suspended from time. Lucas knew he was falling in love with her, had probably been falling since she held his hand in that hospital room, but he couldn't say it, couldn't burden her with that on top of everything else. So he kept it locked inside and told himself it was enough just to have her in his life, however briefly. 3 months after the collapse, Lucas had a particularly difficult appointment with Dr. Reeves. The latest tests showed the condition was progressing slightly faster than initially projected, maybe 10 months left instead of 12 to 18. Jenna was with him, as always. She asked the technical questions he couldn't process, took notes on the doctor's recommendations, held his hand when the news settled over him like a weighted blanket. In the car afterward, Lucas was silent. Jenna didn't push him to talk. She'd learned when to offer words and when to simply be present. But when they got to his penthouse and he headed straight for the liquor cabinet, she intervened. "That's not going to help," she said gently, taking the bottle of scotch from his hands. "You don't know what will help." His voice was sharp, pain making him lash out. "You're right, I don't. But I know what won't, and drinking alone isn't it." "Then what?" Lucas demanded, frustration and fear boiling over. "What am I supposed to do, Jenna? I'm dying, faster than I thought, and there's nothing I can do to stop it." so forgive me if I want to numb that for a few hours. I'm not saying you can't have a drink. I'm saying don't do it alone." Jenna's voice remained calm, steady. "If you need to fall apart, fall apart. But let me be here while you do." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why do you keep showing up for this?" "For me? I'm a terrible investment, Jenna. I have an expiration date. Stop talking about yourself like you're a business transaction." Now there was steel in her voice. "You're a person, a good person, who's scared and hurt and facing something unbearable. And I'm here because I choose to be, because I care, because you matter to me." "I shouldn't matter to you." Lucas turned away, his hands shaking from the disease or emotion. He couldn't tell anymore. "You should be spending your time with people who have futures, not wasting it on—" "Don't." Jenna moved in front of him, forcing him to look at her. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. You are not a waste of time. The time I spend with you is the most meaningful part of my day. Every conversation, every lunch, every evening like this, it matters. You matter. And I'm not going anywhere." Lucas stared at her, this woman who'd upended his entire existence, and felt something crack inside him. The wall he'd been maintaining, the last barrier between friendship and something more, crumbled completely. "I love you," he whispered, the words escaping before he could stop them. "God, Jenna, I love you. And I know I have no right to. I know it's the most selfish thing I could possibly feel, but I can't help it. You've become everything to me." Jenna's eyes filled with tears. "Lucas, I'm not asking you to say it back," he rushed on. "I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know, because I've spent my whole life holding everything in, protecting myself, and now I don't have time for that anymore. So yes, I love you. And it's terrifying and wonderful and completely impossible, but it's true." "You idiot," Jenna said through tears. "You beautiful, frustrating idiot. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." She kissed him. One moment Lucas was apologizing, and the next, Jenna's hands were in his hair, and her lips were on his, and the entire world narrowed to this single point of contact. He froze for half a second, shocked, then kissed her back with all the pent-up longing of months spent denying what he felt. His hands found her waist, pulled her closer, and Jenna made a small sound that sent electricity through his veins. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas stared at her in disbelief. "Why did you?" "Because I love you too," Jenna said simply. "I've loved you for months, you impossible man, since you cried in my arms at the hospital, since you started actually eating lunch because I brought it, since you played piano for me at 3 in the morning when you couldn't sleep and I came over to keep you company." "But I'm dying," Lucas said, needing her to understand the full weight of what she was saying. "I know. I have 10 months, maybe less. I know. Loving me means losing me. Soon. Painfully. I know." Jenna cupped his face in her hands. "I've known from the beginning, Lucas, and I chose this anyway. I chose you. Because 10 months of really living with you is worth more than a lifetime of just existing without you." Lucas felt tears stream down his face unchecked. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," Jenna agreed with a watery smile. "But you've got me anyway. So stop trying to push me away and just accept that someone loves you. Can you do that?" "I can try." He pulled her close, held her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. "I can try." They stood in his sterile penthouse, holding each other while the city sparkled outside the windows, and for the first time since his diagnosis, Lucas felt something besides fear. He felt hope. Not the hope that he'd survive, he was past that delusion, but hope that his remaining time could be more than just counting down to the end, that he could love and be loved, that he could matter to someone in a way that transcended his empire and his wealth, that he could finally learn what it meant to truly live before he died. "Stay tonight," he whispered into her hair. "Just stay with me." "Okay." Jenna pulled back enough to look at him. "But Lucas, if we're doing this, if we're really doing this, you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll stop trying to protect me from your diagnosis. Stop holding back because you think loving you will hurt me. It will hurt. When you're gone, it will hurt more than anything. But trying to minimize that by holding yourself back just robs us both of time we could spend really being together. Lucas understood what she was asking. Full vulnerability, complete honesty, no more walls. It was terrifying. It was also exactly what he needed. "I promise," he said. "No more holding back." "Good." Jenna kissed him again, softer this time. "Now let's order actual dinner, because that appointment derailed lunch and I'm starving." Lucas laughed, actually laughed, and it felt foreign and wonderful. "You're remarkable, you know that? I'm practical. There's a difference." "But," she smiled as she said it. They ordered Thai food and ate it, curled up on his couch. Jenna tucked against his side like she'd always belonged there. They watched an old movie Lucas had mentioned loving, and Jenna fell asleep halfway through with her head on his shoulder. Lucas didn't wake her. He just held her, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against his ribs, and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he could have this. Love, connection, meaning, even if only for a little while. When the movie ended, he carefully carried Jenna to his bedroom. She stirred, but didn't fully wake, and laid her on the bed. She curled into his pillow immediately, and Lucas stood there for a moment just watching her sleep. This woman had saved him, not from dying, nothing could do that, but from dying alone, from wasting his remaining time isolated and afraid. She'd taught him how to be human again, and now, looking at her in his bed, Lucas realized something that should have terrified him, but instead filled him with determination. He wanted to give her something back, something meaningful, something that would last beyond his expiration date. The idea had been forming in the back of his mind for weeks, too radical to fully examine. But now, with Jenna sleeping in his bed and love making him brave, Lucas let himself think it through completely. He had no heir, no family, no one to carry forward anything of real value. But he could create one, a child, his child, raised by Jenna with all the love and warmth she'd shown him. It was audacious, probably insane, definitely would be seen as transactional and cold by anyone who didn't understand. But it would give Jenna security, would give his child a mother who knew how to love unconditionally, would give Lucas a legacy that mattered more than any building with his name on it. He'd have to propose it carefully, make sure Jenna understood it was a request, not a demand, that she had complete autonomy to refuse, that he'd never hold it against her either way. But the more Lucas thought about it, the more right it felt. A family, something he'd never let himself want, something he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve. But Jenna made him believe he could have it, could build something beautiful in the shadow of his mortality. He just had to find the courage to ask. Lucas pulled a blanket over Jenna's sleeping form and retreated to his study. He spent the rest of the night making notes, considering logistics, preparing for a conversation that would either give him everything he'd never known he wanted or cost him the only thing that made his remaining time bearable. By morning, he had a plan. By evening, he'd have an answer, and nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Jenna woke in Lucas's bed to find him already up, showered, and making coffee in the kitchen. She shuffled out in the t-shirt he'd given her to sleep in, her hair a mess, and Lucas felt his heart clench at how right she looked in his space. "Morning," she mumbled, accepting the coffee he handed her. "What time is it?" 7:30. "I let you sleep in." He watched her take that first grateful sip. "How do you feel about calling in sick today?" Jenna lowered the mug, eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Why?" "Because I want to spend the day with you. Really spend it. Not stolen lunch breaks or evenings after work. A full day. Just us." "Lucas, I can't just..." "You have 17 unused sick days." I checked. At her surprised look, he added, "I'm still technically your boss. I have access to that information." "That's an abuse of power," she said, but she was smiling. "Probably. So will you? Take the day off? Let me be selfish with your time?" Jenna studied him for a moment, seeing something in his expression that made her pause. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, I need to talk to you about something important, and I want to do it properly, not rushed between meetings." "That sounds ominous." "It's not. I promise. Just important." Jenna set down her coffee and moved closer, concern evident in her eyes. You're not having second thoughts about us, are you? Because last night was perfect, Lucas interrupted, taking her hands. This isn't about second thoughts, it's about moving forward, but I want to talk when we're both fully awake and have time. So please, call in sick, spend the day with me. Okay, Jenna agreed, but you're making me very nervous with all this build-up. Don't be nervous, just trust me. I do trust you. Those simple words meant more to Lucas than she could possibly know. They spent the morning at ease, breakfast together, both of them moving around the kitchen in comfortable synchronization. Jenna called her replacement at the reception desk, citing a stomach bug. Lucas cleared his calendar, ignoring his assistant's shocked protests. The world will survive without me for one day, he told Margaret firmly. Reschedule everything. By noon, they were walking through the botanical gardens, hand in hand, the November air crisp but not yet bitter. Lucas had suggested somewhere beautiful and quiet, somewhere they could talk without interruption. Jenna kept glancing at him, trying to read his mood. He seemed nervous, which was unusual. Lucas was always controlled, always composed. But today his hand was slightly clammy in hers, and he kept starting sentences and then abandoning them. Finally, Jenna stopped walking and pulled him to face her. Lucas, whatever it is, just say it. You're going to give yourself a panic attack with all this building tension. He laughed shakily. You're right, I'm handling this badly. Handling what badly? Lucas took a deep breath, looking at this woman who'd become his entire world in such a short time. Then he spoke the words he'd practiced all night. I want to ask you something. Something huge and probably insane and possibly offensive. And I need you to know before I ask that you can say no, that I'll understand if you say no, that our relationship won't change if you say no. You're doing that thing again where you make me more nervous. Sorry. He squeezed her hands. Okay, here it is. Jenna, I'm dying. We both know this, and I've made peace with it, as much as anyone can. But there's something I can't make peace with. What's that? Leaving nothing behind. My whole life has been about building this empire, making money, gaining power, and none of it matters. When I'm gone, it'll be fought over by lawyers and distant relatives and business partners who never actually cared about me. It'll be dismantled or sold or absorbed into something else. And it'll be like I never existed. Jenna's eyes filled with understanding. Lucas, that's not true. You've affected so many people, built companies that employ thousands. Your work matters. Does it? Or is it just transactions, numbers, on a spreadsheet? He shook his head. What I'm trying to say is that until I met you, I thought that was enough. But now I know there's something more meaningful I could leave behind. Something real. I don't understand. Lucas took another breath, steadying himself. I want a child, Jenna. An heir. Not for the money, I don't care about that. But someone who could be raised with love and values and actually matter in this world. Someone who could be better than I was. Jenna went very still. You want a child? Yes. And I know it's a lot to ask. I know it sounds crazy, but I've thought about this carefully, and there's only one person I could imagine raising my child the right way. Only one person I trust completely to give them the life I never had. Lucas, let me finish, please. He squeezed her hands, his voice urgent now. I'm not asking you to do this out of obligation. I'm not asking you to be a surrogate or a transaction. I'm asking if you'd consider building a family with me. In whatever time I have left, marry me, Jenna, have my child. And when I'm gone, you'll have the resources to give them everything they need and raise them to be the kind of person who makes the world better just by being in it. Jenna stared at him, tears streaming down her face now. You're proposing? Yes. I know it's not romantic. I know I'm packaging it wrong. But I have 1 year left to live, Jenna said, her voice shaking. Marry me and give me an heir and you'll get everything. Lucas froze. What? That's what you're really saying, isn't it? That's the transaction you've built in your head. She pulled her hands free, and Lucas felt panic spike. Lucas, do you really think this is about money for me? Do you honestly believe I'd agree to have your child just for financial security? No, that's not. I'm explaining this terribly. He reached for her, desperate. Jenna, please understand. I'm not trying to buy you. I'm not trying to make this transactional. I just don't know how else to say it. I'm dying, and I want to leave something good behind, and you're the only good thing in my life. You're the only person I trust to carry forward something that matters. Then why frame it like a business deal? Jenna demanded. Why can't you just say what you mean? Because I'm scared, the words burst out of him. I'm terrified you'll say no, that you'll realize what I'm asking is insane, that you'll leave, and I'll have ruined the only meaningful relationship I've ever had. So yes, I'm hiding behind business terminology and practical arguments because that's what I know how to do. But the truth? He stepped closer, his voice breaking. The truth is, I love you so much it's killing me faster than this disease, and I know I have no right to ask you to have my child. I know it's the most selfish thing I could possibly request, but I want a family, Jenna. For the first time in my life, I want something beyond my empire. I want to create life instead of just building companies, and I want to do it with you because you're the only person who's ever made me feel like I'm worth loving. Jenna wiped her tears, her expression softening. There, that's what you should have led with. So you're not saying no? I'm saying you need to understand something. She moved closer, taking his face in her hands. I love you, Lucas Hale. Not your money, not your empire. You, the man who cries during sad movies and plays piano at 3 in the morning and is finally learning how to be vulnerable. That's who I love. I know that. I do. Then know this too. If I agree to have your child, it's not because of financial security or legacy or any practical reason you can articulate in a boardroom. It's because I want a family with you too. Because I want a part of you to continue after you're gone. Because the thought of raising a child who has your brilliance and maybe, hopefully, some of my heart makes me happier than I've been in my entire life. Lucas felt hope bloom so intensely it hurt. Does that mean? It means, ask me properly, Jenna said. Not as a business proposition, as the man who loves me. Ask me to build a family with you because you want to spend your remaining time creating something beautiful. Lucas dropped to one knee right there in the botanical gardens, taking her hand and looking up at this woman who'd saved him in every way a person could be saved. Jenna Brooks, he said, his voice steady now despite the tears on his face. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. You've taught me how to live in the time I have left. You've shown me that vulnerability isn't weakness and connection isn't danger, and I want to spend whatever days I have left building something beautiful with you. Not because it's practical or logical or a good business decision, but because loving you has been the best thing I've ever done, and creating a family with you would be the most meaningful legacy I could possibly leave. So, will you marry me? Will you have my child? Will you let me love you for as long as I'm able? Yes, Jenna said through tears. Yes, to all of it. Yes. Lucas surged to his feet and pulled her into a kiss that felt like a promise, like hope, like everything he'd been too afraid to want suddenly becoming possible. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Lucas realized he didn't have a ring. He'd been so focused on the words, on making her understand, that he'd forgotten the symbol. I don't have a ring, he admitted. I'm terrible at this. I don't need a ring right now. Jenna pulled him close again. I just need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't treat this like a business transaction, that you'll let yourself be present for all of it. The marriage, the pregnancy, the family we're building. No holding back because you're afraid of making me hurt more when you're gone. I want all of you, Lucas, for however long we have. I promise, he said, meaning it with everything in him. No more holding back, just us, building something real. They stood in the gardens holding each other while other visitors walked past, oblivious to the fact that they were witnessing a man who'd spent 41 years afraid of connection, finally choosing love over fear, choosing life over mere survival, choosing to build something that would last beyond his expiration date. As they walked back toward his car, hand in hand, Lucas felt lighter than he had in months. The diagnosis was still there. The timeline hadn't changed. Death was still waiting at the end of this road. But now he had a reason to make the journey meaningful. He had Jenna. And soon, if they were lucky, they'd have a family, a legacy built not on money or power, but on love. and that was worth everything. They got married 3 weeks later, not in some elaborate ceremony with hundreds of guests and months of planning. Lucas didn't have months to waste on wedding logistics, and neither of them wanted the spectacle. What they wanted was simple: to commit to each other, to make it real, to start the life they were building before time ran out. The ceremony took place in the courthouse on a cold December morning. Margaret, Lucas's assistant, served as one witness. Jenna's younger sister, Amy, flew in from college to be the other. The judge who married them was a woman in her 60s who'd seen thousands of couples take their vows. But something about Lucas and Jenna made her pause. "I can tell this matters," she said before beginning the ceremony. "Whatever brought you here, whatever circumstances surround this union, I can see that you two truly love each other." "We do," Jenna confirmed, squeezing Lucas's hand. The judge smiled. "Then, let's make it official." The vows were standard, the traditional words about sickness and health, better or worse, "till death do you part." Lucas's voice caught on that last phrase, the timeline suddenly very real. Jenna squeezed his hand harder, anchoring him. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed Jenna like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Margaret dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Amy openly cried. Afterward, they went to lunch at a quiet restaurant, just the four of them. Amy peppered Lucas with questions, protective of her older sister, in that way younger siblings were when they suspected someone might hurt their family. "So you're really okay with this?" Amy asked Jenna pointedly during a moment when Lucas was distracted by Margaret discussing some urgent work matter, because from the outside, this looks incredibly fast. "I'm more than okay with it," Jenna said softly. "I love him, Amy. I know it seems rushed, but when you know time is limited, you don't waste it." "He told you about the diagnosis?" "I've known from the beginning." Jenna watched Lucas across the table, saw the way he kept glancing back at her like he needed to confirm she was still there. "I'm going into this with my eyes open." "But Jenna, you're going to lose him, soon. How are you okay with that?" "I'm not okay with it. It's going to destroy me when he's gone." Jenna's voice was steady, despite the tears threatening. "But Amy, these past few months with Lucas have been the happiest of my life. He sees me in a way no one else ever has. He makes me feel valued and loved and important. And yes, I'll grieve him, but I'd rather have this time with him and grieve than never have had him at all." Amy studied her sister for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, if you're sure." "I'm sure." That evening, back at the penthouse, their penthouse now, Jenna reminded herself they finally had their wedding night. Lucas had been nervous all day, trying to hide it, and failing. Over dinner that Margaret had arranged to be delivered, Jenna finally called him on it. "What's going on in that head of yours?" she asked, setting down her fork. "You've been somewhere else all evening." Lucas looked at her across the table, candlelight making her eyes glow. His wife. The words still felt surreal. "I'm thinking about what comes next," he admitted. "We talked about having a child, but we haven't discussed the practicalities, the timeline, whether you want to try naturally or consider other options given my health situation." "I've been thinking about that too." Jenna reached across the table for his hand. "I spoke with my doctor last week, got a full workup, made sure everything was ready. She said there's no reason we can't conceive naturally. My cycles are regular, I'm healthy. It might take a few months, but I might not have a few months," Lucas said quietly. "The progression is unpredictable. Some days I feel fine, other days I can barely get out of bed. Then we do our best with the time we have." Jenna stood and moved around the table to sit in his lap, something that had become natural between them. "Lucas, we can't control everything. We can't force this to happen on a timeline. We just try, and we hope, and if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, then we still have each other. And that's enough." She kissed him softly. "You're enough." Lucas held her close, breathing in her scent, feeling the warmth of her against him. "I want this so much. I want to give you a child, want to know there's a part of me that will continue, but I'm terrified it won't happen in time." "I know. I'm scared too." Jenna pulled back to look at him. "But fear doesn't help. So let's focus on what we can control, being present with each other, making every moment count." and trying to create this life we both want. When do you want to start trying? Jenna smiled, her expression turning playful despite the serious conversation. I thought we could start tonight, unless you're too tired. Lucas felt heat rush through him. I'm not too tired. Good. She stood and held out her hand. Then come to bed, husband. The word sent a thrill through him. Husband? He'd never thought he'd be anyone's husband. Never thought he'd want to be. Now it was all he wanted. That night, they made love for the first time as a married couple, with intention and hope woven into every touch. It was tender and passionate and slightly awkward in the way first times often are, but it was theirs, real and imperfect and beautiful. Afterward, Jenna lay with her head on Lucas's chest, listening to his heartbeat, her hand resting on his stomach. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Lucas stroked her hair, feeling more content than he'd ever been in his life. Thank you for saying yes, for all of it. Thank you for asking. She tilted her head up to look at him. Thank you for letting me in, for being brave enough to risk this. Bravery had nothing to do with it. I was terrified. I'm still terrified. That's what makes it brave. Jenna kissed his chest, right over his heart. Doing it, even though you're scared. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and Lucas dreamed for the first time in months about something other than dying. He dreamed about a child with Jenna's gentle eyes and his determination, about teaching them to play piano and watching Jenna read them bedtime stories, about a legacy that mattered. He woke to Jenna watching him, early morning light filtering through the windows. You were smiling in your sleep, she said. What were you dreaming about? The future, Lucas said. Our future. Tell me. So he did. He told her about the dream, about the child they might have, about all the small moments he hoped to witness. Jenna listened with tears in her eyes and love in her expression, and when he finished, she kissed him. We'll make as many of those moments real as we can, she promised, and they tried. The first month of marriage was a study in adjustment and hope. Jenna moved fully into the penthouse, bringing her modest belongings to fill the sterile spaces Lucas had lived in alone for years. Suddenly there were plants on the windowsills and colorful throw pillows on the couch and photographs on the walls. The place transformed from a showroom into a home. Lucas watched this transformation with wonder. You're making it alive, he told Jenna one evening as she arranged books on a shelf. It was too empty before, she said. Homes should have personality, should reflect the people who live in them. I didn't have personality to reflect. You do now, she smiled at him over her shoulder. You're becoming more yourself every day. It was true. Lucas felt himself changing in ways he couldn't have predicted. The rigid control he'd maintained for decades was loosening. He laughed more easily, showed affection without overthinking it. Let Jenna see him on bad days when the disease made him weak, instead of hiding until he could present a strong facade. He cut back on work, much to Margaret's surprise and his board's concern. Where he'd once worked 80-hour weeks, he now worked maybe 30, focusing only on the most critical decisions and delegating everything else. The company will survive without me, he told the board firmly when they expressed concerns, and I need to prioritize what matters now. What mattered was Jenna, their marriage, the family they were trying to build. They made love frequently, sometimes passionate, sometimes tender, always with the underlying hope that this might be the time. Jenna tracked her cycle carefully, though she tried not to make it feel clinical. Lucas appreciated her efforts to keep intimacy intimate rather than transactional. But as the weeks passed with no positive pregnancy test, tension crept in despite their best efforts. It's only been a month, Jenna said one evening when her period arrived, and she couldn't quite hide her disappointment. These things take time. I know. Lucas pulled her close. I just wish we had more time to work with. We have enough. She said it, with conviction she didn't entirely feel. We'll make it work. The second month brought Lucas's first significant health decline. It started with increased tremors in his hands, then episodes of dizziness that left him unable to stand without support. Twice, Jenna found him on the bathroom floor, having passed out from sudden blood pressure drops. You need to see Dr. Reeves, she insisted after the second incident. It's just the disease progressing. There's nothing she can do. Maybe not, but we need to know what we're dealing with. Jenna's voice was firm. Lucas, I can't help you if I don't understand what's happening. So they went to Dr. Reeves, who ran tests and delivered news that Lucas had been dreading. The progression is accelerating, she said, her expression sympathetic. I'd estimate you have perhaps 6 to 8 months left, maybe less if the decline continues at this rate. 6 to 8 months, half of what they'd initially projected. In the car afterward, neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Jenna broke the silence. We have time, she said. Still plenty of time. For what? To try for a baby I might never meet? To put you through pregnancy while I'm deteriorating? Lucas's voice was harsh with self-recrimination. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I was selfish to ask you for this. Stop. Jenna's voice cut through his spiral. Don't do this. Don't decide unilaterally that you know what's best for me. I chose this, Lucas. I chose you, and I'm still choosing you, even with 6 months instead of 12. But, no buts. We knew this wouldn't be easy. We knew the timeline was uncertain. That hasn't changed, just because we have a more specific number now. She reached over and took his hand. I love you. I want your child, and we still have time to make that happen. So please, don't pull away from me now. Lucas looked at his wife, strong, determined, loving even in the face of his mortality, and felt his resolve strengthen. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just scared. I know. Me too. Jenna squeezed his hand. But we're scared together. That's what matters. That night, they made love with renewed urgency, both acutely aware that every day mattered now. Every moment was precious. Every attempt at creating life felt weighted with significance. 2 weeks later, Jenna woke up feeling nauseous. At first, she thought it was stress or something she'd eaten, but when the nausea persisted for 3 days, accompanied by exhaustion and breast tenderness, hope bloomed cautiously in her chest. She bought a pregnancy test on her way home from running errands, her hands shaking as she paid. In their penthouse bathroom, she took the test with her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. When she finally looked at the result, 2 pink lines stared back at her, clear and unmistakable. Positive. Jenna sat on the bathroom floor, test in hand, and cried. Happy tears mixed with terrified ones. She was pregnant. They'd done it. But would Lucas live long enough to meet their child? Would he be there for the birth? Would he hold his son or daughter? She didn't know. Couldn't know. But they had this moment, this confirmation that they'd created life together, that something beautiful had come from their love. Lucas came home an hour later to find Jenna sitting on the couch, the pregnancy test on the coffee table, tears streaming down her face. Jenna? He was beside her immediately, his hands on her face. What's wrong? What happened? She couldn't speak, just pointed at the test. Lucas followed her gesture, saw the 2 pink lines, and went completely still. His eyes widened, his breath caught. When he looked back at Jenna, there were tears in his eyes too. You're pregnant? Yes. The word came out broken. We're having a baby. Lucas pulled her into his arms and held her while they both cried, joy and fear and hope all mixed together. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, processing the enormity of what this meant. We did it, Lucas finally whispered. We actually did it. We did. Jenna pulled back to look at him, cupping his face in her hands. You're going to be a father. I'm going to be a father. He said it like he couldn't quite believe it. God, Jenna, we're having a baby. They laughed and cried at the same time, kissing between tears, unable to fully articulate the overwhelming emotions coursing through them. That evening, they made an appointment with Jenna's OB/GYN for the following week to confirm the pregnancy and establish prenatal care. They didn't tell anyone else yet, wanting to keep it private until they knew more. But that night, lying in bed with Jenna's head on his chest and his hand resting on her still flat stomach, Lucas felt something he hadn't felt since his diagnosis. Pure, uncomplicated joy. I'm so happy, he whispered into the darkness. Me too. Jenna's hand covered his on her stomach. Scared, but happy. Terrified, Lucas agreed. But it's worth it. It is. They fell asleep like that. 2 people who'd chosen love despite impossible odds, now united by the life growing between them. Have you ever wanted something so badly you were afraid to hope for it? Drop a comment and tell me about it. Because that's where Lucas and Jenna are now. They have the miracle they prayed for, but the clock is still ticking. If this story is gripping your heart, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next will test them in ways they never imagined. The pregnancy was confirmed at 6 weeks. Jenna's doctor, Amanda Foster, was warm and professional, and she didn't miss the dynamic between her patient and the pale, shaking man holding Jenna's hand. "Given your husband's health situation," Dr. Foster said carefully, "I want to make sure we're prepared for all possibilities. Jenna, you're healthy. The pregnancy looks good so far. But Mr. Hale, I need to know, are you going to be able to participate in prenatal appointments? Support Jenna through this?" "As much as I'm physically capable of," Lucas said firmly. "This baby is everything to me. I'll be there for every moment I possibly can." Dr. Foster nodded. "Good, because Jenna's going to need support, and I want to make sure she has it." They scheduled regular appointments and left with a folder full of information about prenatal care, nutrition, and what to expect over the coming months. In the car, Lucas turned to Jenna. "I meant what I said. I'll be there, for all of it." "I know you will." She brought his hand to her lips, kissed his knuckles. "We're in this together." The first trimester was brutal for Jenna. Morning sickness turned out to be a misnomer. She was nauseous all day, every day. Some mornings, she couldn't keep anything down. Lucas, despite his own deteriorating health, became her primary caretaker. He learned which foods she could tolerate. He held her hair back when she got sick. He rubbed her feet when she was exhausted. He researched pregnancy symptoms and remedies with the same intensity he'd once applied to business deals. "You don't have to do all this," Jenna said one morning after he'd brought her crackers and ginger tea in bed. "You should be resting." "Taking care of you is how I rest," Lucas said simply. "Besides, this is my fault. The least I can do is help manage the consequences." "It's not a consequence," Jenna touched her stomach gently. "It's a blessing that's currently making you miserable. Worth it." She smiled weakly. "Every second of nausea is worth it." Lucas's health continued its gradual decline. Some days were better than others. On good days, he could work a few hours, take Jenna for a walk, feel almost normal. On bad days, he could barely get out of bed, his body betraying him in new and frustrating ways. The tremors in his hands became constant. His balance was increasingly unreliable. He had episodes where his vision doubled or his speech slurred. Each symptom was a reminder that time was running out, but he also had moments of profound peace. Sitting on the couch with Jenna, his hand on her growing belly, feeling their child move for the first time. Watching her face light up when they went for their 12-week ultrasound and heard the baby's heartbeat strong and fast and miraculous. "That's our baby," Jenna whispered, tears streaming down her face. "That's our baby," Lucas echoed, his own vision blurring. They decided not to find out the gender. Lucas wanted to be surprised. "One of life's few genuine surprises," he said. "I want to experience that, if he lived long enough to experience it." The unspoken caveat hung between them constantly. At 14 weeks, they finally told people. Margaret cried when Lucas informed her. Amy flew in for a weekend visit and spent an hour asking Lucas increasingly pointed questions about his plans for Jenna and the baby's financial security. "It's all arranged," Lucas assured her. "Jenna and the child are provided for. The estate is structured so that even if I die before the baby is born, everything goes to them. No legal battles, no uncertainty." "Good," Amy's fierce protectiveness reminded Lucas of Jenna, "because my sister deserves security and this baby deserves a future. They'll have both, I promise." Lucas also made the pregnancy announcement to his board, adding that he'd be stepping back further from day-to-day operations. "My wife and child are my priority now," he said firmly. "The company has excellent leadership. It will thrive without me." Some board members were supportive. Others clearly thought he'd lost his mind, throwing away his legacy for a child he might never meet. Lucas didn't care about their opinions. He'd spent too many years living for other people's approval. By the second trimester, Jenna's nausea had eased, replaced by a visible baby bump and renewed energy. She glowed with pregnancy, her happiness evident despite the circumstances. Lucas was simultaneously better and worse. The disease had plateaued temporarily, one of those mysterious pauses that Dr. Reeves said sometimes happened. He had more good days, could do more, felt more present. "Maybe you're getting that remission thing," Jenna said hopefully one evening. "Maybe your body is fighting back. Maybe." Lucas didn't let himself believe it. Couldn't afford to hope for miracles and be crushed when they didn't materialize. But he was grateful for the reprieve, however temporary. They used the time wisely, prepared the nursery together, painting it a soft yellow that would work for either gender, assembled furniture, washed tiny clothes, stocked up on diapers and supplies. "I want to be ready," Lucas said, "in case I'm not here when the baby arrives. I want you to have everything you need." "I'll have everything I need if I have you," Jenna replied. "But I understand. And I love that you're nesting. Is that what this is called?" "That's what it's called." She smiled and kissed him. "You're going to be such a good dad." "I hope so." Lucas touched her belly, feeling a kick respond to his hand. "I hope I get to be a dad at all." "You will be. Even if," Jenna's voice caught, "even if you're not here physically, you'll still be this baby's father. I'll make sure they know you, know how much you loved them before they were even born." Lucas pulled her close, hiding his tears in her hair. "Thank you for all of this, for giving me this gift. Thank you for asking." Jenna held him tight. "Thank you for being brave enough to want this, to want us." At 20 weeks, they had the anatomy scan. Dr. Foster examined every part of the baby carefully, checking development, measuring limbs, counting fingers and toes. "Everything looks perfect," she announced. "Healthy, growing well, right on track. Do you want to know the gender?" Lucas and Jenna exchanged a look. They'd agreed not to find out. But now, sitting here, Lucas felt an overwhelming need to know, to have that piece of information, to be able to say his son or his daughter instead of just the baby. "Yes," he said, "I want to know." Jenna squeezed his hand. "Okay, we want to know." Dr. Foster smiled. "You're having a girl." "A girl." Lucas felt his world tilt. A daughter. He was going to have a daughter. Jenna was crying and laughing at the same time. "A girl. We're having a girl." "A daughter," Lucas whispered, staring at the ultrasound screen where their baby, their daughter, was clearly visible. "We're having a daughter." That evening, they sat on the couch, both still processing. "Lily," Jenna said suddenly. "I've always loved the name Lily." "Lily." Lucas tested the name, felt it settle into his chest. "Lily Hale." "Lily Rose Hale," Jenna amended. "Rose was my grandmother's name." "Lily Rose Hale." Lucas smiled. "It's perfect. She's perfect." "She is." Jenna rested her head on his shoulder. "Our daughter." Lucas wrapped his arm around his wife. His hand splayed protectively over her belly where his daughter was growing, and felt more complete than he'd ever felt in his life. He had a wife who loved him, a daughter on the way, a family that was real and meaningful and worth every moment of fear and vulnerability it had taken to get here. For the first time since his diagnosis, Lucas didn't focus on what he was losing. He focused on what he'd gained, and it was everything. The third trimester brought both joy and escalating challenges. Jenna grew larger, her belly now unmistakably round with their daughter. She felt Lily move constantly, kicks and rolls, and what felt like gymnastics sessions at 3 in the morning. Every movement was a reminder of the life they'd created together. But Lucas's health took a sharp downward turn. The plateau ended abruptly in Jenna's 28th week. Lucas woke one morning unable to feel his legs. The sensation returned after several terrifying minutes, but it was a harbinger of what was coming. His mobility became increasingly compromised. Some days he needed a cane, other days a wheelchair. His hands shook so badly he couldn't write or type. His speech occasionally slurred, words getting lost between his brain and his mouth. He hated every moment of the decline. Hated that Jenna, 7 months pregnant and dealing with her own physical challenges, was now taking care of him more than he could take care of her. "I should be helping you," he said one evening after she'd helped him to bed. "Not the other way around. We help each other." Jenna eased herself onto the bed beside him, her movements careful with her large belly. That's what marriage is. This isn't fair to you. Life isn't fair, Lucas. We both knew that going in. She took his trembling hand in hers, steadying it. But we chose each other anyway. We chose this family. And I don't regret it. Not for a second. Even when you're exhausted and pregnant and playing nurse to a dying man. Even then. She brought his hand to her belly, pressed it against a particularly strong kick. Feel that? That's our daughter. That's what we made together. And she's worth everything, every hard moment, every fear, every tear. She's worth it all. Lucas felt Lily kick against his palm and couldn't argue. His daughter, his legacy, his proof that he'd been here, that he'd mattered, that he'd loved and been loved. You're right, he whispered. She's worth everything. At 30 weeks, Lucas had a major episode. He collapsed in the bathroom, unable to catch himself, and hit his head on the edge of the sink. Jenna, moving as quickly as her pregnant body allowed, found him unconscious and bleeding. The ambulance ride felt like déjà vu from that day in the corporate lobby, except this time, Jenna was heavily pregnant and Lucas was deteriorating faster than anyone had predicted. At the hospital, Dr. Reeves evaluated him thoroughly. The news wasn't good. The disease has progressed significantly, she told them once Lucas was stable. You're in the end stages now. I'd estimate weeks, maybe a month or two. I'm sorry. Weeks. Lucas looked at Jenna's belly. She was 30 weeks pregnant. The baby wasn't due for another 10 weeks. I won't make it to her birth, he said flatly. You don't know that, Jenna protested, her voice breaking. Dr. Reeves said maybe 2 months. That could be enough. Jenna. No. She stood, her hands on her belly, fierce determination in her eyes. I don't accept this. You're going to fight. You're going to be there when our daughter is born. You're going to hold her and tell her you love her and be her father for however long you can. Do you understand me? Lucas stared at his wife 8 months pregnant, exhausted, terrified, but absolutely refusing to give up, and felt something shift in his chest. She was right. He couldn't control how long he had, but he could control how he spent the time that remained. Okay, he said, I'll fight. For you. For Lily. I'll fight. The next few weeks were a delicate balance of hope and reality. Lucas came home from the hospital with hospice support, nurses who visited regularly, medications to manage symptoms, equipment to make him comfortable. Jenna, now in her final weeks of pregnancy, split her time between preparing for the baby and caring for Lucas. It should have been impossible, but she managed, driven by love and determination, and the absolute refusal to let either of them face this alone. Lucas did his best to be present for the final preparations. He couldn't do much physically, but he could be there, could offer opinions on last-minute nursery details, could help Jenna pack her hospital bag, could tell her stories he wanted her to share with Lily about his childhood, his parents, the man he'd been before disease stole his strength. I'm writing letters, he told her one evening, for Lily, for different milestones. First birthday, first day of school, graduation, wedding. I want her to hear from me even when I'm not here to say the words. Jenna cried, but she helped him. When his hands shook too badly to write, she transcribed his words. They spent hours on this project, creating a legacy of love, letter by letter. At 35 weeks, Jenna went into early labor. It started with contractions she initially dismissed as Braxton Hicks, but when her water broke at 2 in the morning, panic set in. Lucas, she shook him awake. Carefully, he slept so lightly now, every sound startling him. The baby's coming. He struggled to full consciousness, to process her words. Now, it's too early. I know, but she's coming anyway. Another contraction hit, and Jenna gripped his hand. We need to get to the hospital. The night became a blur of motion. The hospice nurse, who was staying overnight, helped Lucas into his wheelchair. They called an ambulance. Lucas couldn't travel safely by car in his condition, and Jenna needed medical attention. At the hospital, chaos took over. Jenna was rushed to labor and delivery. Lucas was assessed by his medical team. Everyone moved with urgent efficiency. Dr. Foster appeared at Lucas's side. Mr. Hale, your wife is in active labor. The baby is 5 weeks early, but at 35 weeks, the prognosis is generally good. However, given your condition, I need to know. Do you want to be in the delivery room? Yes. No hesitation. Whatever it takes, I need to be there. It might be dangerous for you. The stress, the exertion, I don't care. Lucas met her eyes with the force of will that had built an empire. That's my wife and my daughter in there. I'm not missing this. Do whatever you need to do to make it happen. Dr. Foster nodded slowly. Okay, we'll get you set up. They brought Lucas into the delivery room in his wheelchair, positioned him near Jenna's head where he could hold her hand and see her face. Monitors and medical equipment surrounded them. The room was full of people, doctors, nurses, specialists, ready for any complications with the premature baby. Jenna looked at Lucas, fear and determination mixed in her expression. You made it. Of course I made it. He squeezed her hand. I wouldn't miss this for anything. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, but we're doing this together. Lucas brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. You're the strongest person I know. You can do this. We can do this, she corrected. The labor was long and difficult. Hours passed. Jenna's pain intensified. Lucas felt helpless, able to offer only words and presence while she did the impossible work of bringing their daughter into the world. At some point, Lucas's own medical team became concerned. His vital signs were unstable. They wanted to remove him from the room. No, he said firmly. I stay until my daughter is born. I don't care what happens to me after that, but I will not leave this room. Jenna, between contractions, reinforced his words. He stays. He needs to meet his daughter. So they stayed. Both of them, fighting their own battles, Jenna to bring life into the world, Lucas to stay conscious long enough to witness it. And finally, after hours that felt like days, Dr. Foster said the words they'd been desperate to hear. One more push, Jenna. Your daughter is almost here. Jenna pushed with everything she had left, her hand crushing Lucas's, a scream tearing from her throat. And then, a baby's cry, high and indignant and absolutely beautiful. She's here, Dr. Foster said, lifting a tiny, perfect baby into view. Lily Rose Hale, welcome to the world. Lucas stared at his daughter, at this impossibly small person he and Jenna had created, and felt his entire world realign. She was real. She was here. She was perfect. Tears streamed down his face unchecked. She's beautiful, he whispered. Jenna, she's so beautiful. Is she okay? Jenna asked, exhausted but alert. Is she healthy? She's small, but she looks good, Doctor. Foster said. We'll need to do a full assessment, but initial appearance is positive. She looked at Lucas. Do you want to hold her? Can I? He looked at his shaking hands, his wheelchair, his obvious frailty. Is it safe? We'll help you. A nurse brought Lily over, cleaned but still covered in vernix, wrapped in a blanket. Support her head, just like this. They placed his daughter in his arms, and Lucas looked down at Lily Rose Hale for the first time. She was tiny, barely 5 pounds, the nurse estimated. Her face was scrunched and red. She had dark hair plastered to her head and eyes that couldn't quite focus yet, but seemed to look directly at him anyway. His daughter, his legacy, his proof that love could create something beautiful even in the shadow of death. Hi, Lily, Lucas whispered, his voice breaking. Hi, baby girl. I'm your daddy. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Lily made a small sound, her tiny fist escaping the blanket to wave in the air. Lucas offered her his finger, and her hand wrapped around it with surprising strength. She's holding on to you, Jenna said from the bed, tears streaming down her face as she watched them. She knows you're her daddy. I love you, Lucas told his daughter. I love you so much, and I'm so sorry I can't stay. So sorry I won't be here to watch you grow up. But your mother, your amazing, strong, beautiful mother, will tell you about me. And I'll love you forever, baby girl, forever. He looked up at Jenna, at this woman who'd given him everything he'd never known he needed. Thank you for her. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for loving me enough to do this. Thank you for asking, Jenna replied. Thank you for fighting to be here. They spent the next hour like that, Lily in Lucas's arms, Jenna recovering nearby, doctors monitoring both the newborn and the dying father. The nurses gave them privacy when they could, understanding that this time was precious and fleeting. Lucas memorized everything. The weight of his daughter in his arms, the sound of her breathing, the way her face scrunched when she was thinking about crying, the feeling of her tiny hand gripping his finger like she'd never let go. Eventually, the pediatric team needed to take Lily for a full evaluation. Lucas reluctantly handed her over, feeling the loss of her weight immediately. "We'll bring her back soon," the neonatal nurse promised. "She needs some monitoring since she's premature, but she looks remarkably healthy for 35 weeks. After they left with Lily, Lucas felt himself crashing. The adrenaline that had kept him upright through the delivery was wearing off, and his body was demanding payment for the exertion. "Lucas," Jenna's voice was alarmed. "Someone help him." Medical staff swarmed immediately. Lucas's blood pressure had dropped dangerously low. His heart rate was erratic. Dr. Reeves appeared, assessing him quickly. "Mr. Hale, we need to get you stabilized. You've pushed yourself beyond your limits." "I know," Lucas's voice was weak, "but I had to meet her, had to hold her. And you did. Now let us help you." They moved him to a room adjacent to Jenna's, keeping them close but giving his medical team space to work. Lucas drifted in and out of consciousness while they stabilized him, pumped him full of medications, did everything they could to extend his time. When he finally woke, hours later, he found Jenna in a wheelchair beside his bed, holding a clear hospital bassinet. Inside was Lily, sleeping peacefully. "Hey," Jenna said softly. "Welcome back." "How is she?" Lucas asked immediately. "Perfect. A little small, but her lungs are developed. All her systems are working. They want to monitor her for a few days to be safe. But Dr. Foster says she's remarkably healthy for a 35-weeker. Jenna's smile was radiant despite her exhaustion. "We did good, Lucas." "You did good? I just showed up." "You did more than show up. You fought to be there. You held her. You told her you loved her." Jenna's voice broke. "You gave her the gift of knowing her father, even if only for a moment." Lucas looked at his daughter, sleeping peacefully despite being born into such complicated circumstances. "Can I hold her again?" The nurses said, "Brief holds are okay, as long as you're careful." Jenna lifted Lily gently and placed her in Lucas's arms. The weight of her, the warmth, it was everything. Lucas looked down at his daughter and felt peace settle over him for the first time since his diagnosis. This was what mattered, not the empire he'd built or the money he'd accumulated. This tiny person, this perfect combination of him and Jenna, this was his legacy. "I need to tell you something," Lucas said to Jenna, his voice quiet but steady. "In case I don't get another chance." "Lucas, please, let me say this." He took a breath. "Before you, I was dead already, just going through motions, building things that didn't matter, avoiding anything that felt real because I was too afraid of being hurt. You saved me, Jenna. You taught me how to live, and even if I only got months instead of years, they were the best months of my life because they were real, because they were with you." Tears streamed down Jenna's face. "You saved me too, made me believe I deserved more than just surviving, made me feel seen and valued and loved." "Promise me something," Lucas said. "Promise me you'll tell Lily about this, about us, about how much I wanted her, how happy she made me. Promise me she'll know she was loved from the moment we knew she existed." "I promise. Every day, Lucas. She'll know every day. And promise me you'll live, Jenna, really live. Don't let grief consume you. Find joy, maybe even find love again someday. You're 28 years old. You deserve a full life." "I can't think about that right now." "I know, but when you can, when enough time has passed, remember that I want you happy. That loving you means wanting your happiness even when I'm not here to provide it." He looked down at Lily. "And raise her to be brave, to love deeply, to build things that matter instead of things that just look impressive. Raise her to be better than I was." "She'll be just like you," Jenna said, "brilliant and determined and secretly soft underneath all that armor." Lucas smiled. "With your kindness and warmth, I hope." They sat together in the quiet hospital room, their daughter between them, and let themselves exist in this perfect, painful moment. A family, complete and whole, even knowing it was temporary. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Lily stayed in the NICU for monitoring but thrived. She gained weight, passed all her tests, exceeded every expectation for a premature infant. Jenna spent most of her time there, holding her daughter, nursing her, bonding with her. Lucas visited when he could, but his strength was fading rapidly. The exertion of the delivery had accelerated his decline. Some days he could barely stay awake for more than an hour. Other days, the pain was so intense that even holding Lily was difficult. But he fought for every moment he could get. Every time he held his daughter, every time he saw her perfect face, he pushed through the exhaustion and pain, because these moments were everything. 1 week after Lily's birth, Dr. Foster cleared her to go home. She was small but healthy, feeding well, all her systems functioning properly. "She's a fighter," Dr. Foster told them with a smile. "Must get it from her parents." Lucas wanted to go home with them, but Dr. Reeves was firm. "Mr. Hale, your condition has deteriorated significantly. I strongly recommend hospice care at this point, either in a facility or at home with full support." "Home," Lucas said immediately. "I want to go home. I want to be with my family." So they arranged it. Lucas was released from the hospital the same day as Lily, with a full hospice team ready to provide round-the-clock care at the penthouse. Coming home as a family, Jenna exhausted but glowing, Lucas in a wheelchair barely able to keep his eyes open, and Lily in her car seat, looking tiny and perfect, felt surreal and wonderful. The penthouse had been transformed by friends and staff. The nursery was complete, filled with everything a baby could need. The master bedroom had been outfitted with medical equipment for Lucas. Everything was ready for this new chapter of their lives, however brief it might be. That first night home, Jenna brought Lily to Lucas's bedside for a feeding. He couldn't hold her long anymore, his arms were too weak, his grip too unreliable, but he could watch, could reach out and touch her soft hair, could tell her stories in his increasingly slurred speech. "Once upon a time," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "there was a man who thought he had everything. Money, power, success, but he was wrong. He had nothing that mattered. And then one day, a kind woman helped him when he fell, and everything changed." He told Lily the story of how he met her mother, how Jenna had seen him when he was invisible, how love had taught him what actually mattered in life. Lily couldn't understand the words, but she seemed to listen anyway, her dark eyes so like his fixed on his face. When she fell asleep, Jenna laid her in the bassinet beside the bed and curled up next to Lucas carefully. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "It's the truth." Lucas kissed her forehead with effort. "Best story I know. It's our story. It's Lily's story too now. She's the happy ending I never thought I'd get." They fell asleep like that, husband, wife, and daughter, all in the same room, a family complete for however long they had. The clock is ticking, but love has already won. Lucas fought to meet his daughter, and now every moment is precious. But how much time does he have left? And how will Jenna survive what's coming? Lucas Hale died on a Tuesday morning in February, 6 weeks after his daughter was born. He died the way he'd wanted to at home, in his own bed, with Jenna holding his hand and Lily sleeping in her bassinet nearby. The sun was streaming through the bedroom windows, casting golden light across the three of them. It was peaceful, it was quiet, it was as good as dying could possibly be. But before we get to that ending, you need to know about the 6 weeks that came before it. The 6 weeks that proved love can flourish even in the shadow of death. The 6 weeks that transformed Lucas from a man afraid of his mortality into a father who spent every remaining breath teaching his daughter what it meant to be loved. The first week with Lily at home was chaos wrapped in wonder. Newborns were demanding under normal circumstances. Newborns with a father dying of a degenerative disease and a mother still recovering from childbirth were nearly impossible. But somehow, they managed. Jenna ran on almost no sleep, moving between caring for Lily and caring for Lucas. The hospice nurses helped, but Jenna insisted on doing most of it herself. This was her family. These were her people. She wouldn't outsource their care to strangers, no matter how qualified. Lucas's good hours became increasingly rare. Most days, he could stay awake for maybe 2 or 3 hours total, scattered across the day in fragments. His speech was almost entirely gone, Words that used to come easily now tangled on his tongue, emerging as frustrated sounds instead of sentences. But he could still hold Lily, if someone helped position her carefully in his arms, and he could still look at her with eyes that said everything his voice couldn't. One afternoon, during one of his brief wakeful periods, the hospice nurse brought Lily to him. Jenna was sleeping. She'd been up all night with feedings and had finally crashed around noon. Lucas held his daughter, supported by pillows, and just looked at her. She was awake, her dark eyes wandering aimlessly the way newborns' eyes did, not quite able to focus but aware of light and shadow. "Hi, baby girl," Lucas whispered, each word an effort. "Daddy's here." Lily made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a comment on existence. "I know," Lucas replied, as if they were having a real conversation. "Everything's new and confusing, but you're safe. Your mama loves you so much. And his voice broke. "I wish I could stay. God, I wish I could stay and watch you grow up, see who you become, walk you to school, teach you to play piano, scare away boys when you're 16. Lily yawned, unimpressed by her father's mortality crisis. Lucas laughed, a sound that came out more like a wheeze but was still recognizably joy. "You're right, that's all future stuff. Right now, you just need to be held and fed and loved, and I can do that. For as long as I'm here, I can do that." He touched her tiny hand, and her fingers wrapped around his thumb with that instinctive newborn grip. The sensation, her strength, her aliveness, her absolute certainty that hands were for holding, made Lucas's chest ache with love so intense it was almost painful. "You're perfect," he told her. "Absolutely perfect, and I'm so proud to be your dad." The hospice nurse, Maria, watched from the doorway with tears in her eyes. She'd been a hospice nurse for 15 years, had seen death in every form imaginable. But there was something about watching this man, clearly days or weeks from the end, pour love into his newborn daughter that broke her heart in the best way. When Jenna woke an hour later, she found Lucas still holding Lily, both of them asleep. She took a picture on her phone, capturing the moment her husband and daughter, his face peaceful for once, Lily tucked securely against his chest. That photo would become one of her most treasured possessions. By the second week, Lucas could no longer speak at all. The disease had stolen his voice completely. He communicated through expression, through the squeeze of his hand, through the way his eyes crinkled when Jenna brought Lily to him. Jenna narrated their days to him, knowing he could still hear, still understand. "Lily smiled today," she told him one morning, her voice bright despite her exhaustion. "I know the books say it was probably gas, but Lucas, it looked like a real smile. She was looking right at me, and her whole face just lit up." Lucas's eyes crinkled his smile, since his mouth no longer cooperated. "I wish you could have seen it, but there will be more. You'll see the next one." They both knew that might not be true, but hope cost nothing, and they clung to it. The lawyers came during week 3. Lucas had insisted, weeks ago, that all his affairs be in order before Lily was born. He'd made it happen with time to spare, but there were final documents to sign, final arrangements to confirm. Lucas could barely hold a pen anymore, his signature an illegible scrawl. But he managed, witnessed by the lawyers and hospice staff, making absolutely certain that Jenna and Lily would be protected. Everything, the penthouse, the investment portfolio, the business holdings, went to them. There was a trust established for Lily's education and future. There was enough money that Jenna would never have to work again if she didn't want to, though knowing her, she would anyway because that's who she was. But more importantly, there were the letters. Before his speech had failed completely, Lucas had recorded videos, dozens of them, for Lily's milestones: first birthday, first day of school, graduation, wedding day, the birth of her own children someday, for moments when she'd need fatherly advice or just want to hear his voice. He'd also written letters, painstakingly typed when his hands still cooperated, then dictated to Jenna when they didn't. Letters about his life, his mistakes, the lessons he'd learned too late. Letters about love and courage and the importance of being vulnerable. "I want her to know me," Lucas had said when they started the project. "Not the man I was before, the cold, isolated version, but who I became because of you, because of her. I want her to know that love changed me." Jenna had cried while transcribing his words, but she'd done it. All of it. Because Lucas needed this legacy, and she would give him anything she could. One letter in particular stood out. Lucas had dictated it during a rare, clear moment in week 2, his words pouring out with urgency like he knew time was running out. My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry I couldn't stay. Sorry I won't be there to see you grow into whoever you're meant to be. But I need you to know something. You were not an accident or an obligation. You were a choice, a hope, a prayer I didn't even know I was making. Your mother and I created you in the shadow of my death, which might seem sad or desperate. But Lily, it was the bravest thing I ever did. Choosing to love your mother when I knew I'd lose her. Choosing to bring you into the world knowing I couldn't stay. Choosing life even while dying. That's what I want you to understand. Life is always, always worth choosing. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Even when you know the ending won't be happy. Because the moments in between the love, the connection, the joy, those moments, matter more than the ending. You matter, Lily Rose Hale. You mattered before you were born. You'll matter long after I'm gone. And everything good in me, whatever worthy legacy I leave, that's you. You're proof that I was here, that I loved, that I mattered to someone. Be brave, baby girl. Be kind. Be open to love even when it scares you. And know that wherever I am, whatever comes after this, I'm so incredibly proud to be your father. I love you forever, Dad. When Jenna finished typing that letter, she'd set down the laptop and climbed into bed beside Lucas, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. He'd held her with what little strength he had left, and they'd grieved together for all the moments he'd miss. But they'd also celebrated what they had. 6 weeks with their daughter, 6 weeks of being a family. 6 weeks more than Lucas had dared hope for when Dr. Reeves first delivered the 12 to 18-month prognosis. He'd beaten the odds just by making it to Lily's birth. Everything after was borrowed time, and they both knew it. Week 4 brought a gift neither of them expected. Lucas's parents, dead since he was 19, had left behind some old family videos that Lucas had kept but never watched. Too painful, he'd always said. Too much grief packed into magnetic tape. But Jenna, knowing Lily would have no memories of her father, decided those videos were important. She had them digitized by a service that specialized in old formats, and one evening she set up the laptop beside Lucas's bed and pressed play. The screen filled with images from Lucas's childhood. Him at age 5, gap-toothed and laughing, playing in a sprinkler. Him at 8, serious and focused, at his first piano recital. Him at 15, all awkward height and uncertain smiles, being hugged by both parents on his birthday. And his parents, his mother gentle-faced and warm, so much like Jenna in temperament. His father stern but loving, teaching young Lucas to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to be brave. Lucas watched with tears streaming down his face. He hadn't seen these videos in over 20 years, hadn't let himself remember what it felt like to be their son, to be loved unconditionally, to believe the world was safe. Jenna held Lily up so she could watch too, though the baby was more interested in grabbing at the laptop screen. Look, Lily, Jenna said softly. That's your daddy when he was little, and those are your grandparents. They would have loved you so much. Lucas managed to lift his hand to the screen, touching the image of his mother. Jenna understood. I'll tell her about them, she promised. About how your mum taught you to play piano, how your dad was a math teacher who made numbers into stories, how they loved you fiercely until the day they died. Lily will know her grandparents through your memories. That night, after the videos ended and Lily had fallen asleep in her bassinet, Lucas took Jenna's hand and spelled out letters on her palm, their communication system. Now that speech was impossible. T, A, T, A, O, U. For what? Jenna asked, though her voice was thick with tears. Life. Such a simple word, such an enormous concept. You gave me life too, Jenna whispered. You and Lily. You gave me purpose and love and a family, so thank you right back. They fell asleep holding hands, the way they had every night since the hospital, needing that physical connection more than words. By week 5, Lucas was sleeping more than he was awake. The hospice team prepared Jenna for what was coming, the final stages, the gradual shutdown of systems, the eventual peaceful passing. It could be days or weeks, Maria told her gently. There's no way to know for certain. But his body is tired, Jenna. It's fought for a long time. When he's ready to let go, he will. Jenna nodded, understanding but not accepting. How could she accept that Lucas, her husband, her love, her daughter's father, was leaving? How could anyone accept that? But she also knew she couldn't make this harder for him by falling apart. Lucas needed her to be strong, to give him permission to go when the time came, to not trap him here with her grief. So she was strong, at least when he could see her. At night, after Lucas fell asleep and Lily was fed and changed and settled, Jenna allowed herself to break. She'd go into the nursery, sit in the rocking chair, and cry, silently, so she wouldn't wake either of them, but with her whole body shaking from the force of the grief she was holding back. Amy came to visit during week 5, taking one look at her sister and immediately taking over every non-Lucas, non-Lily task. She cooked meals, she did laundry, she managed the stream of visitors who wanted to pay their respects, co-workers from Heir Industries, board members, even some distant relatives who'd ignored Lucas for years but suddenly appeared when death was imminent. Vultures, Amy muttered after turning away yet another distant cousin. Where were they when he was building his company? When he was alone? It doesn't matter, Jenna said wearily. Let them come or not. Lucas doesn't know the difference anymore. But that wasn't entirely true. Lucas, even in his diminished state, seemed to know when Jenna was nearby. His breathing would even out when she touched him. His expression would soften when she brought Lily to him. One afternoon, during one of his brief, wakeful moments, Jenna held Lily up to his face so he could see her clearly. "Look at her, Lucas," Jenna whispered. "Look at what we made. She's perfect. She's ours. And she's going to grow up knowing how much her daddy loved her." Lucas's eyes filled with tears. He tried to lift his hand to touch Lily but couldn't manage it. Jenna guided his hand to their daughter's head, helped him feel her soft hair, her warm skin. Lily, as if sensing the importance of the moment, was completely still. Her dark eyes, so much like Lucas's, seemed to focus on her father's face for a long moment, and then she smiled. Not a gas smile, not a random facial movement. A real, genuine smile directed at her father. Lucas's face transformed. Despite the disease, despite the weakness, his joy was unmistakable. Jenna caught it on video, her hands shaking as she held up her phone. She knew this might be the last time Lucas saw Lily smile. Knew this moment needed to be captured. "She knows you," Jenna said through tears. "She knows you're her daddy, and she loves you." Lucas spelled on Jenna's palm, Loveher. "I know you do. She knows it too. Talher. Every day, Lucas. Every single day for the rest of her life. I'll tell her how much you loved her." Week 6 began with a cold snap, February asserting itself with snow and wind and temperatures that made the city look like a black and white photograph. Inside the penthouse, though, warmth persisted. The heat was on high. Blankets were piled on Lucas's bed. Lily was kept cozy in her bassinet. Lucas was fading visibly now. He barely woke anymore. When he did, it was for minutes rather than hours. His breathing had changed, shallower, with longer pauses between breaths that made Jenna's heart stop each time. Maria, the hospice nurse, took Jenna aside one morning. "It's close now, maybe days. Make sure you say everything you need to say." Jenna nodded numbly. She'd been preparing for this, but preparation didn't make it easier. That evening, after Lily's feeding and changing, Jenna brought her daughter to Lucas one more time. She wasn't sure if he was awake or could hear her, but she talked anyway. "Lucas, it's me. I have Lily here. She just ate, and she's sleepy. But I wanted you to. I needed you to know we're here, both of us, your girls." She settled into bed beside him carefully, Lily between them, and kept talking. "I've been thinking about the future, about what I'll tell Lily when she asks about you. And I think I'll start with the day we met, when you collapsed in the lobby and I ran to help you. You looked so scared, Lucas, so vulnerable. And I saw the real you in that moment, not the cold CEO everyone thought you were, but the man who was terrified of being alone. She traced patterns on his arm, needing the physical connection. I'll tell her how you held my hand in the hospital, how you cried when I said I'd help you, how you slowly let me see all the parts of yourself you'd hidden for so long. I'll tell her about our first kiss, about the way you looked at me when you proposed, about how hard you fought to make it to her birth. Lily made a small sound, and Jenna adjusted her position. And I'll tell her about these 6 weeks, how you held her even when you could barely move, how you looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world, how your eyes crinkled when she smiled, how you spelled "love her" on my palm like it was the most important message you could send. Jenna's voice broke, but she kept going. I'll tell her that you chose us, Lucas, that you could have spent your last year alone, protected behind walls, avoiding the pain of connection, but you chose love instead. You chose vulnerability. You chose us. And that choice gave us everything. She laid her hand over his heart, feeling its irregular, weakening rhythm. I'll tell her that love is always worth it, even when it hurts, even when you lose it. Because the time we had together, it was real and beautiful, and it mattered. We mattered. This family we built mattered. Lucas's eyes flickered open barely, just slits, but enough to show he was hearing her. "Hey," Jenna whispered, "you're awake." He couldn't respond verbally, but his eyes found hers and held. "I love you," Jenna said. "I love you so much. And it's okay, Lucas. If you need to go, if you're ready, it's okay. We'll be okay. I promise. Lily and I will take care of each other, and we'll keep you alive in our stories and our memories and our love." A single tear slid down Lucas's face. "You can rest now," Jenna said, giving him permission, knowing he needed it. "You fought so hard. You gave us so much, but you don't have to fight anymore. We'll be here, right here beside you, but you can let go if you need to." Lucas's eyes stayed on hers for another long moment. Then, with what seemed like enormous effort, he moved his hand to rest on Lily. One last touch, one last connection to his daughter. Then his eyes closed, and he seemed to sink deeper into sleep. Jenna stayed beside him all night, Lily between them, forming a family portrait that would never be captured on film, but was seared into her memory forever. When Lucas died on that Tuesday morning in February, the sun was streaming through the windows in golden shafts that seemed almost holy. Jenna woke to Lily fussing and immediately checked on Lucas. His breathing had stopped. No dramatic gasping, no struggle, just a quiet cessation, like he'd simply decided it was time and slipped away while his family slept. Jenna touched his face, still warm, not yet gone in the way that bodies eventually become empty shells. "Oh, Lucas," she whispered, "you waited until we were sleeping. You didn't want us to watch." Even in death, he was trying to protect them. Lily started crying in earnest now, needing a change and food, and Jenna had a moment of absolute surrealism. Her husband had just died, and her daughter needed her diaper changed. Life and death occupying the same moment, demanding equal attention. She called the hospice line through her tears, reported what had happened. They'd send someone to handle the official pronouncement and the body. But for now, for these last private moments, it was just Jenna, Lily, and Lucas. Jenna picked up her daughter, held her close, and stood beside the bed. "Say goodbye to Daddy," she told Lily, her voice breaking. "Tell him you love him. Tell him thank you for fighting to meet you. Tell him we'll carry him with us forever." Lily, obviously understanding none of this, just stared at Lucas's still face with solemn eyes. Jenna bent down and kissed Lucas's forehead. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for seeing me, for loving me, for giving me our daughter, for teaching me that love is always worth the risk." She straightened up, holding Lily against her chest, and said the hardest words she'd ever spoken. "Goodbye, Lucas. Rest well, my love. We'll be okay, I promise." The hospice team arrived within the hour. They were gentle and professional, giving Jenna space to say her final goodbyes before they took Lucas's body. Maria hugged her tightly. "He fought until he knew you'd be okay," she said. "That's what they do, they hold on until they know their loved ones can survive without them. He believed in you, Jenna. He knew you were strong enough. After they left with Lucas's body, the penthouse felt enormous and empty. Jenna stood in the sudden silence, holding Lily, and felt the full weight of her new reality settle over her. She was a widow at 28, a single mother to a 6-week-old. The only family she had left, at least the family she'd chosen, was the baby in her arms. Amy arrived within hours of Jenna's call, and Margaret came shortly after. They formed a buffer between Jenna and the world, handling phone calls and arrangements and the 1,000 details that followed death. The funeral was scheduled for the following week. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that losing them felt like losing part of yourself? Drop a comment and share your story. Because grief is universal, we all face it eventually. And learning how to carry it, how to honor the people we've lost while still living our own lives, that's one of the hardest things we ever do. If this story is touching your heart, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Because what happens next, how Jenna and Lily move forward, is the real lesson about love and legacy. The funeral for Lucas Heir was well attended. Business associates who'd worked with him for years, board members from Heir Industries, employees who'd known him as a demanding but fair boss, distant relatives who appeared out of obligation, and the handful of people who'd actually known him as a person, Margaret, Amy, the hospice staff who'd cared for him in his final weeks. Jenna stood at the front of the funeral home, Lily in her arms, and gave a eulogy that made everyone cry, even the distant relatives who'd never known Lucas was capable of love. Lucas Heir was many things, she began, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. A brilliant businessman, a visionary CEO, a man who built an empire from nothing through sheer determination and intelligence. She paused, looking down at Lily, who was miraculously quiet, as if sensing the importance of the moment. But that's not who I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the Lucas that most of you never knew. The man who cried during sad movies, who played piano at 3 in the morning when he couldn't sleep, who learned to be vulnerable even though it terrified him. Her voice strengthened. Lucas spent most of his life alone. He built walls to protect himself from hurt, from loss, from the vulnerability that comes with connection, and those walls worked. He was safe behind them. But he was also miserable. Jenna looked out at the assembled crowd. It took a terminal diagnosis for Lucas to finally tear down those walls, to let someone in, to risk loving and being loved even though he knew how it would end. And you know what he told me? That those last months, the months we spent together, the weeks he spent with our daughter, were the best of his life. She had to pause, composing herself. Lucas taught me that love is always worth the risk. That connection, real, honest, vulnerable connection, is what makes us human. That building a legacy isn't about money or power or having your name on buildings. It's about the people you love and who love you back. It's about the moments you share. It's about being brave enough to let yourself be seen. Jenna looked down at Lily again. This is Lucas's legacy, not Heir Industries or his portfolio or his penthouse. This little girl, who will grow up knowing her father fought to meet her, who will hear stories about how he chose love over fear, who will carry forward the lessons he learned too late, but learned completely. She addressed Lily directly now, even though the baby couldn't understand. Your daddy loved you, Lily Rose. From the moment he knew you existed, you were his priority, his hope, his reason to keep fighting. And he wanted you to know that love makes everything, all the pain, all the fear, all the difficulty, absolutely worth it. When Jenna finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the funeral, back at the penthouse, Jenna finally allowed herself to fully break down. Amy held her while she sobbed, Lily sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, oblivious to her mother's grief. How do I do this? Jenna asked through her tears. How do I raise her alone? How do I be enough for her when she deserves 2 parents? You do it one day at a time, Amy said firmly. One feeding, one diaper, one milestone at a time. And you're not alone, Jenna. You have me. You have Margaret and the friends you've made. You have all of Lucas's resources to make sure Lily has everything she needs. But she doesn't have her father. No, but she has his love. She has his letters and videos and the stories you'll tell her. She has you, carrying forward everything good about him. That's not nothing, Jenna. That's everything. Jenna cried until she had no tears left, then picked up her daughter and held her close. "It's just us now, baby girl," she whispered. "You and me. We're going to figure this out together." The first year without Lucas was survival. Jenna moved through the days on autopilot: feed Lily, change Lily, play with Lily, sleep when Lily slept, repeat. The grief was always there, a constant weight she carried, but she couldn't let it consume her. She had a daughter depending on her. The penthouse felt haunted. Lucas's presence was everywhere, his piano that no one played anymore, his office full of papers and projects left unfinished, his clothes still in the closet because Jenna couldn't bring herself to pack them away. At 3 months old, Lily started smiling more regularly. At 4 months, she laughed for the first time, a genuine, belly-deep giggle that made Jenna cry because Lucas should have been there to hear it. At 6 months, Lily started sitting up on her own. At 8 months, she began crawling. Each milestone was joyous and devastating, proof that life continued, that Lily was growing, that time moved forward whether you wanted it to or not. Jenna took thousands of photos and videos, documenting everything. She talked to Lily constantly about Lucas. "That's your daddy," she'd say, showing Lily photos. "See, he's holding you right after you were born. He loved you so much, Lily. So much." On Lily's first birthday, Jenna played the video Lucas had recorded for this exact milestone. Seeing him on screen, healthy enough to speak clearly, smiling at the camera, so full of love, broke something open in Jenna's chest. "Happy first birthday, Lily Rose," Lucas's recorded voice said. "I wish I could be there to celebrate with you, to watch you smash your first cake all over your face, to see who you're becoming. But since I can't be there in person, I want to tell you a few things." The video was 10 minutes long. Lucas told Lily stories about her grandparents, about his childhood, about the importance of kindness and bravery and never being afraid to love deeply. "Your mother is the strongest person I've ever known," he said near the end. "She's going to raise you to be extraordinary, and I really hope, that you'll be happy, Lily, that you'll live fully and love deeply and never, ever build walls around your heart the way I did for so long. You deserve joy, baby girl. You deserve everything good this world has to offer." Jenna and Lily watched the video together, Lily not really understanding but captivated by the moving images, Jenna crying so hard she could barely breathe. But they got through it. They got through the first birthday, and then the second, and the third. Each year, there was a new video from Lucas. Each year, Jenna told Lily more stories about her father. Each year, the grief became slightly less sharp, slightly more bearable. By the time Lily was 3, she could say "Dada" and point to Lucas's picture. She couldn't remember him, she'd been too young, but she knew who he was, knew he loved her, knew he was part of her story. Jenna had thrown herself into work with the Second Chance initiative, the foundation Lucas had wanted to start. She'd made it real, using his resources to help single parents and people facing terminal diagnoses. She'd turned her grief into purpose, her pain into something that helped others. And slowly, imperceptibly, she started to heal. Not get over it. You didn't get over losing someone you loved. But heal in the sense of learning to carry the grief without being crushed by it. Learning to find joy again without guilt. Learning that loving Lucas and moving forward weren't mutually exclusive. When Lily was 4, something unexpected happened. Jenna met someone. His name was David Chen, and he was a volunteer at the Second Chance initiative. A widower himself, he understood grief in a way most people didn't. They started as friends, 2 people who'd loved deeply and lost and were trying to figure out how to keep living. Friendship became something more gradually, so gradually that Jenna didn't notice it happening until Amy pointed it out. "You like him," her sister said one evening while watching Jenna talk to David at a foundation event. "He's nice," Jenna said carefully. "He's more than nice. He makes you smile, really smile. Not just the polite smile you've been wearing for 4 years. Jenna looked at David across the room, saw him laughing at something Lily had said, and felt her heart do something it hadn't done since Lucas died. It fluttered. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She was attracted to David, maybe even developing feelings for him, and immediately, crushing guilt followed. "I can't," she told Amy. "Lucas." Would want you to be happy, Amy interrupted firmly. Jenna, he literally told you that, in the hospital. He made you promise you'd live, not just survive. Remember? She did remember. Lucas's words. Promise me you'll live, Jenna. Really live. Don't let grief consume you. Find joy. Maybe even find love again someday. But it feels like betrayal. It's not betrayal. It's honoring what Lucas wanted for you. Amy squeezed her hand. He loved you enough to want your happiness even after he was gone. That's what real love looks like. So Jenna let herself consider the possibility. Let herself spend time with David. Let herself explore what these feelings might become. It was terrifying and wonderful and nothing like what she'd had with Lucas, but that was okay. Different didn't mean less. It just meant different. David was patient and understanding. He never tried to replace Lucas or erase his memory. He understood that Jenna came as a package deal, her, Lily, and the ghost of a love that had shaped them both. I'm not trying to be Lily's father, David told Jenna one evening. She has a father. Lucas will always be her dad. But I can be someone who cares about her. Someone who's here. If you'll let me. Jenna looked at this man who understood grief and loved anyway, and made a choice Lucas would have been proud of. She chose to live. They dated slowly, carefully, always with Lily's well-being as the priority. And gradually, Jenna felt herself opening up again, letting someone in, risking her heart, even though she knew how much it hurt to lose love. Because Lucas had taught her that love was always worth the risk. When Lily was 5, Jenna and David got married. It was a small ceremony in the park where Jenna and Lucas had gotten engaged. Amy was maid of honor. Lily was flower girl, taking her job very seriously. Before the ceremony, Jenna took Lily aside. You know David isn't trying to replace your daddy, right? She asked gently. Your daddy will always be your daddy. David is just someone else who loves us. Is that okay? Lily considered this with the seriousness only 5-year-olds could manage. Can I have 2 daddies, one in heaven and one here? Yes, baby, you can absolutely have 2 daddies. Okay, then it's okay. Lily paused. Do you think Daddy would be mad? No, sweetheart. I think Daddy would be happy that we're happy. That's what people who love us want for us to be happy. During the ceremony, Jenna included a tribute to Lucas. She poured a small amount of champagne on the ground, where they stood a symbolic drink with the person who'd taught her to love fearlessly. Thank you, she whispered, knowing Lucas couldn't hear but needing to say it anyway. Thank you for choosing me, for giving me Lily, for teaching me that love is worth everything. The wind picked up just then, rustling the trees, and Jenna chose to believe it was Lucas saying goodbye, releasing her, giving her permission to be happy. That night, with David and Lily both asleep, Jenna sat alone in what used to be Lucas's study and opened the letter he'd written for this exact moment. Dearest Jenna, if you're reading this, you've found love again. And I'm so grateful, so relieved, because the thought of you spending the rest of your life alone, locked in grief, haunted me more than my own death. I need you to know, this isn't betrayal, this isn't forgetting me. This is exactly what I wanted for you. You deserve a full life, Jenna. You deserve partnership and companionship and love that doesn't have an expiration date. Asterisk, tell Lily about me. Keep my memory alive. But don't let my ghost keep you from living. I was part of your story, but I'm not the whole story. There are chapters yet to be written, and you deserve to write them with joy instead of just grief. Whoever you've chosen to love, I hope he sees how extraordinary you are. I hope he treasures you the way I did. I hope he understands what a privilege it is to be part of Lily's life. And I really hope that he makes you laugh the way you made me laugh in those final months. You saved me, Jenna. You taught me what love actually meant. You gave me the most beautiful ending I could have asked for. Now go live a beautiful continuation. You've earned it. I love you. I'll always love you. But I love you enough to let you go. Forever grateful, Lucas. Jenna cried reading the letter, but they were healing tears. Release tears. Permission tears. She folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the box with all of Lucas's other letters to Lily. Someday, when her daughter was older, she'd share this one too. Show her what real love looked like, love that wanted the best for someone even after death. But for now, Jenna went to bed beside her new husband, grateful for second chances, grateful for the courage to love again, grateful for Lucas teaching her that life was always worth choosing. 5 years later, Lily was 10 years old, bright and curious and full of life. She had Lucas's dark eyes and determination, Jenna's warmth and kindness. She was extraordinary, and everyone who knew her could see it. David had been in her life for 6 years now, not replacing Lucas, but adding to the family in his own way. He was patient and steady, the kind of father figure Lily needed. And 2 years ago, he and Jenna had welcomed a son, Lily's half-brother James. The family had moved out of the penthouse years ago. Too many memories, Jenna had decided. Too much Lucas in every corner. They'd bought a house in the suburbs with a big backyard and a room for each child. A place where they could build new memories without constantly bumping into old ones. But Jenna had kept Lucas's piano. It sat in their living room now, and she'd started teaching Lily to play. Her daughter had a natural talent for it, her small fingers finding the keys with confidence that reminded Jenna painfully of Lucas. "Did my first daddy play piano?" Lily asked one afternoon during practice. "He did, beautifully. Late at night when he couldn't sleep, he'd play for hours. I wish I could have heard him." "I have recordings," Jenna said, "from before he got too sick. Would you like to listen?" Lily's face lit up. "Really? You have recordings of him playing?" That evening, Jenna pulled out the old videos. Lucas at the piano in his penthouse, playing Chopin and Debussy, and pieces he'd composed himself. His face relaxed in a way it rarely was, his hands sure and graceful on the keys. Lily watched, mesmerized. He was really good. He was. And so are you. Jenna hugged her daughter close. "You have his talent and his determination. He'd be so proud of you, Lily. Do you think he can see me? From heaven?" It was a question Lily had asked before, in different variations. Jenna never lied to her. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But even if he can't, his love for you was so strong that it's still here. In the letters he wrote, in the videos he recorded, in the stories I tell you. Love doesn't die, Lily. It just changes form." "I love him," Lily said quietly. "Even though I never really knew him. He loved you too, so much. You were his greatest joy." Later that week, Lily had a school assignment. Write about someone who inspired you. She chose Lucas. Jenna sat beside her daughter as Lily carefully crafted her essay, asking questions about her father, about what he'd been like, about what he'd taught Jenna. "He taught me to be brave," Jenna said, "to love even when you're scared, to build things that matter, to never let fear keep you from connection." Lily wrote it all down in her careful 10-year-old handwriting. When she finished, she read it aloud to Jenna. "My father, Lucas Heir, died when I was 6 weeks old. I don't remember him, but I know he loved me. My mom tells me stories about how he fought to meet me, even though he was very sick. How he held me and told me he loved me. How he wanted me to be brave and kind and never afraid to love people. My dad was a businessman who built companies, but Mom says that's not what made him special. What made him special was that he learned to be vulnerable. He learned that love is more important than money or power. He learned that family is what matters most. My dad inspires me because he chose love, even though he knew it would hurt. He chose to have me, even though he knew he couldn't stay. That's the bravest thing I can imagine. I have another dad now, David, who's here with me every day. I love him too. But my first dad, Lucas, he'll always be part of who I am. He gave me life and love, and Mom says that's the greatest gift anyone can give. I want to be brave like my dad. I want to love people even when it's scary. I want to build things that matter, and I want to make him proud wherever he is." When Lily finished reading, both she and Jenna were crying. "He would be so proud," Jenna whispered. "You have no idea how proud he'd be of who you're becoming." That night, Jenna pulled out the letter Lucas had written for Lily's 10th birthday. They'd watched the video earlier, Lucas looking gaunt but happy, telling stories about being 10 years old, giving advice about navigating friendships and school and growing up. But this letter was private, meant just for Lily's eyes. Jenna handed it to her daughter. "Your dad wrote you a letter for your 10th birthday. I think you're old enough to read it yourself now." Lily took the envelope with reverent hands, carefully opening it and unfolding the pages inside. She read silently, her expression shifting from curiosity to wonder to tears. When she finished, she looked up at Jenna. He said he wished he could be here to see who I'm becoming. He did wish that, more than anything. But he said even if he can't be here, he knows I'll be amazing because I have you. Lily clutched the letter to her chest. Mom, do you think I'm amazing? I think you're the most amazing person I've ever known, Jenna said honestly. You're kind and smart and brave and creative. You're everything your father hoped you'd be and more. I want to keep making him proud, Lily said seriously. Even though he's not here to see it, I want to live the kind of life he'd be proud of. Then be yourself, Lily. Be exactly who you are. That's what would make him proudest. 10 years later, Lily was 20 years old, a college student studying music and business, a combination that felt right, honoring both Lucas's legacy and her own passions. She'd watched all of Lucas's videos now, read all his letters. She'd grown up with his story woven into her own, understanding more as she got older about the sacrifice he'd made, the courage it took to choose love knowing he'd lose it. The foundation Jenna had built in Lucas's name had grown exponentially. They'd helped thousands of families, funded research into rare diseases, created support networks for people facing terminal diagnoses. Lily worked there part-time, wanting to be part of her father's legacy. One afternoon, Lily found Jenna in the foundation office, going through old files. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think Dad would be okay with who I am, with the choices I'm making? Jenna looked at her daughter, so grown now, so beautiful and bright and full of potential. What makes you ask that? I don't know. I guess I just wonder sometimes if I'm living up to what he wanted for me, if I'm making him proud. Jenna set down the files and gave Lily her full attention. Your father wanted 3 things for you, Lily. To be happy, to be brave, to love deeply. That's it. He didn't care what career you chose or how much money you made or any of the traditional markers of success. He just wanted you to live fully. And you think I am? I think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're finding your path. You're opening your heart to people. You're building something meaningful. Yes, Lily. I think you're making him incredibly proud. Lily was quiet for a moment. I wish I could have known him. Really known him. Not just through stories and videos. I know, sweetheart. I wish that too. But Mom, thank you for keeping him alive for me, for making sure I knew him even though I couldn't remember him. That must have been hard talking about him all the time, reliving the grief over and over. Jenna's eyes filled with tears. It was hard, but it was also healing. Every time I told you a story about your father, I remembered why I loved him, why it was all worth it. You made the pain purposeful, Lily. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby girl. So much. That evening, Jenna did something she hadn't done in years. She went to the cemetery where Lucas was buried and sat beside his headstone. Lucas Heir, beloved father and husband, he chose love. Hey, she said to the stone, feeling only slightly foolish. It's been a while. Sorry about that. Life gets busy, and honestly, I talk to you in my head all the time, so coming here feels redundant. The wind rustled through the trees, birds singing in the distance. Lily's 20 now. Can you believe it? 20 years since you held her in the hospital. 20 years since you died. It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. Jenna traced the letters of his name carved into the granite. She's extraordinary, Lucas. Everything we hoped she'd be and more. She has your brilliant mind and your determination. She has my heart, at least. That's what everyone says. She's kind and brave and so full of life. You'd love her. You'd be so proud of who she's become. A tear slid down Jenna's cheek. I kept my promise. I told her about you every day. I made sure she knew how much you loved her. I kept your memory alive. But I also lived, Lucas, like you asked me to. I found love again. I had another child. I built the foundation and helped thousands of families. I didn't just survive, I thrived. She wiped her eyes. And I need you to know, loving David, having James, building this new life, it didn't diminish what we had. You were my first love, my great love, the person who taught me what it meant to be truly seen. That will never change. Jenna stood, preparing to leave but needing to say one more thing. Thank you, Lucas, for knocking on death's door and deciding to live anyway, for being brave enough to ask me to marry you, for giving me Lily, for teaching me that love is always, always worth the risk. You changed my life in the best possible way. She kissed her fingers and touched them to his name on the stone. Rest well, my love. We're okay. Better than okay. We're living the life you wanted for us. 25 years later. Lily was 45 now, with children of her own, 3 of them, all raised on stories about their grandfather Lucas, who died before their mother was old enough to remember him. Jenna was 73, still vibrant and active, still running the Second Chance initiative with David by her side. They'd had a good life together, full of love and laughter, and the kind of steady companionship that sustained decades. But Jenna knew her time was running out. She'd been diagnosed with cancer 6 months ago, aggressive and terminal. The doctors gave her maybe a year. She found the symmetry fitting. Lucas had died young, but she'd lived a long, full life. They'd both gotten what they needed him, a brief taste of love and family. Her, decades to build something meaningful from his legacy. On what would have been Lucas's 90th birthday, a milestone he'd never reached, never even come close to reaching, Jenna gathered her family together. Lily and her husband, their 3 children, David, James and his family. They all crowded into Jenna and David's living room, 3 generations gathered to honor a man most of them had never met. I want to tell you all a story, Jenna said, her voice still strong despite her illness, about a man who thought he had everything, but actually had nothing, about how terminal diagnosis taught him what mattered, about how he chose love, even though it meant choosing loss. And she told them the whole story, from Lucas collapsing in the lobby to their wedding, to Lily's birth to his death 6 weeks later. She told them about the fear and the hope, the joy and the grief, the impossible choice to build a family in the shadow of death. Her great-grandchildren listened with wide eyes. Even her own children and grandchildren, who'd heard versions of this story before, were captivated. Grandpa Lucas was brave, Lily's youngest said when Jenna finished. He was, Jenna agreed, and so was I. We were brave together. Do you miss him? Lily asked. Even after all these years? Every day, Jenna said honestly, but not the way I used to, not with that sharp, desperate grief. Now it's more like a sweet ache, a reminder that I was loved deeply and loved deeply in return. That's a gift, not a burden. She looked around at her family, Lucas's daughter, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, all these lives that existed because he'd been brave enough to ask her to marry him, to have his child, to love despite the guaranteed loss. This is his legacy, Jenna said, gesturing to all of them. Not the foundation or the money or the buildings with his name on them. This, family, love, connection, the things that actually matter. That night, after everyone had gone home, Jenna sat alone in the quiet house and pulled out the last letter Lucas had written, the one meant for her, for this moment when she was facing her own mortality. My dearest Jenna, if you're reading this, your own time is running short, and I'm so sorry I can't be there to hold your hand the way you held mine. But I really hope, that you're not afraid. Death is just the next chapter, Jenna, a transformation, not an ending, and you've lived such a beautiful story. You turned my brief, desperate love into a lifetime of meaning. You raised our daughter to be extraordinary. You built something that will help people for generations. You did everything I asked and more. You lived fully. You loved deeply. You kept me alive in stories and memories while still building your own happiness. That's the greatest gift you could have given me. When your time comes, I'll be waiting. Whether there's an afterlife or we're just stardust returning to the universe, I'll be there. And we'll finally have all the time we never got in life. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for 6 weeks with our daughter. Thank you for 45 years of keeping my memory alive. Thank you for being brave enough to love me when you knew how it would end. I love you forever, Lucas. Jenna folded the letter carefully and pressed it to her heart. I'll see you soon, she whispered. Wait for me. 6 months later, Jenna died peacefully in her sleep, David holding her hand, her family surrounding her. At her funeral, Lily spoke about her mother's extraordinary life, about the courage it took to love someone dying, about building a legacy from grief, about living fully, even after devastating loss. "My mother taught me that love is always worth it," Lily said, her voice strong despite tears. "That choosing connection, even temporary connection, is better than choosing safety and isolation. She loved my father for less than a year, but that love shaped her entire life, and through her, it shaped mine." She looked out at the gathered crowd, her children, her siblings, her extended family, the hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the Second Chance initiative. "Mom used to say that my father taught her to live, and then she spent 45 years teaching the rest of us the same lesson. Love hard, live fully. Don't let fear keep you from connection." Those were her gifts to us. Lily held up a photo, the one Jenna had taken that day in the hospital, Lucas holding newborn Lily with such tender joy on his face. "This is where my story began, with a dying father holding his newborn daughter, with two people who chose love despite impossible odds, with a decision to create life even in the face of death." She set down the photo and wiped her tears. And this is how their story ends, not with grief or loss, but with legacy, with a daughter who lived fully, with grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carry forward their courage, with a foundation that helps thousands of families, with proof that love, real love, never truly dies. It just transforms. Epilogue. 20 years after Jenna's death, Lily stood in the headquarters of the Second Chance Initiative, now one of the largest charitable foundations in the country, and unveiled a new display. The display told the story of Lucas and Jenna, photos from their brief time together, excerpts from Lucas's letters, videos of them with newborn Lily, the full narrative of how the foundation began. "We started with two people who chose love over fear," Lily told the assembled crowd at the dedication ceremony. "My father, Lucas Heir, who asked my mother to marry him knowing he'd die within the year. My mother, Jenna, who said yes knowing she'd lose him. Together, they proved that love is always, always worth the risk." She gestured to the display, to the photos of her parents smiling at each other, to the image of Lucas holding her in the hospital. "This foundation exists because my father wanted his life to matter, because my mother turned grief into purpose, because both of them believed that even temporary love leaves permanent marks on the world." Lily's own children stood beside her, Lucas's grandchildren, now adults with their own families. "We carry their story forward," Lily continued, "not just in this foundation, but in how we live our lives. We love bravely, we connect deeply, we choose vulnerability over safety, we build things that matter." She placed her hand on the photo of Lucas holding her. "Dad, wherever you are, I hope you can see this. I hope you know that your 1 year of courage created a legacy that's lasted decades, that your brief love transformed thousands of lives, that your daughter grew up knowing how much you loved her, and she loved you right back. And Mom," Lily looked at Jenna's photo, older, smiling, surrounded by family, "thank you for keeping him alive for me, for teaching me to be brave, for showing me what real love looks like. I hope I've made you both proud." The crowd applauded, but Lily barely heard it. She was thinking about her parents, about the courage it took to love despite guaranteed loss, about how they'd taken an impossible situation and created something beautiful, about how love, real love, never really ends. It just keeps rippling outward, touching more lives, creating more connection, proving again and again that being vulnerable is worth it. That choosing love is always, always worth it, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts, because that's what makes us human. That's what gives life meaning. That's what transforms mortality into legacy. This is the lesson Lucas and Jenna left behind. Love is not measured in years, but in depth. Connection is not calculated by duration, but by impact. And legacy is not built on what we accumulate, but on how we love the people around us. If this story moved you, here's what I want you to do. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for yourself. Tomorrow, tell someone you love them, not in a casual, throwaway way, but meaningfully. Look them in the eye and tell them they matter to you. Take that risk. Choose that vulnerability. Life is shorter than we think. Time runs out faster than we expect. But love real, brave, honest love that lasts forever. It transforms. It ripples outward. It becomes the story people tell long after we're gone. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in the power of choosing love over fear. Drop a comment telling me about someone you love, someone who changed your life, someone whose story deserves to be remembered. And remember, you don't need a terminal diagnosis to start living fully. You don't need tragedy to choose courage. You just need to be brave enough to love, even when it scares you, even when you might lose it, even when the ending isn't guaranteed. Because the love itself, that's the point. That's everything. That's what makes this short, beautiful, impossible life worth living. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me share Lucas, Jenna, and Lily's story with you. And thank you for being the kind of person who believes love matters. Now go live like it.